I just found out that a girl got killed here last week. And you knew it. You knew there was a shark out there. You knew it was dangerous. You knew all those things. But still, my boy is dead now. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where we are continuing our epic deep dive into Steven Spielberg's Jaws. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, this is John Rocha. I'm a writer, producer, and host and voiceover artist down here in San Diego, California, near the water, near the beaches. Yeah.
And John and I were both talking right before we got on the mic about how Jaws is just one of those movies. You watched a bunch more of it just this morning.
Yes.
That we could just go in at any time and start watching it and be perfectly happy.
In fact, I was late for a few minutes to our recording because I'd gotten sucked into the middle part of the movie. And there's so much great dialogue and there's so much great acting and direction and cinematography and pacing in this movie, man. It really is a film that you can learn to appreciate more and more as you get older and as you become more aware of film technique and film analysis. It's a film that really holds up when you're looking back on it or watching it again. And so it's such a pleasure to watch the film every single time now.
And we couldn't do this kind of extensive deep dive without our supporters on patreon.com/thecine-files. And in fact, we've got a whole bunch of questions from some of our patrons who have sent them in. We'll go through some of them about Jaws as we go through the film. And your best way to ask questions and have your name read on the Cine-Files is to go to patreon.com/thecine-files. You can also support the show on Apple Podcasts, where you get ad-free versions of the show. And our Cine-Files short right now playing is a short on arguments over box office. That's what you can check out right now.
Yeah, we love to do that. Another way you can support us here on the shows, of course, for those who listen through the commercials, you don't have the ad-free versions. Those sponsors of our show, it's really important that if you hear of any products that you like or any of the things that we're talking about, that you use our code to sign up and try out these products. We have great sponsors right now: Hims, True Diagnostic, Washington Red Raspberries. We've had great sponsors in the past. So the way we keep getting sponsors and keeping sponsors is when you all try out the products that they have. And that's why we offer the codes that we do. So because you get a massive discount and you get to be a part of supporting the show as well. So you kill two birds with one stone. You're interested in something that you want to try out and you're supporting our show. So please make sure you remember that when you listen to the commercials.
So in our last episode, a young woman was killed off the shores of Amity Island. The hardworking chief of police, Chief Brody, wanted to close down the beaches, but was convinced not to, and let's say pressured and manipulated not to, by the mayor and the townsfolk, including, I will say, falsifying some death documents. And that, of course, led to the death of Alex Kitner, a little boy on his raft, in front of the entire community of Amity Island.
Yeah, one of the most horrific deaths you'll ever see on screen, because it is a child and you feel just so helpless. Yeah.
And we cut right from there to a reward sign that says a $3,000 bounty to the man or men who catch and kill the shark that killed Alex Kitner.
Yeah.
And we see, again, every single person in this room, with the exceptions of Robert Shaw, Roy Scheider, Murray Hamilton, and Carl Gottlieb, they're all locals.
Yeah.
So everybody you see talking, including the woman who we met on the beach, who told Ellen that she'll never be an islander, and some of the other folks, that's all just local people that Spielberg and his casting director found when they came to the island.
Yeah, so smart to have that, because it gives so much of just, you sense that sort of realism, right, that of a place like this. And it's fantastic, especially that woman. It's probably why they highlighted her so much, because I'm sure there were other actors who were saying stuff or had lines or whatever, but her stuff is the stuff that made the cut. And it's because it's the one that's most authentic when you're watching these exchanges. And her offhand comments are great,
It's a really weird thing, because you would think that someone playing just who they are in the world, an ordinary person, would be the easiest thing to do. But in fact, there are very, very few people that can act natural on camera. And the fact that they got these locals, and particularly this woman, is just pretty amazing.
We don't even know that there's a shark around here. Oh, look, I can't argue with you. I can't talk to you.
It could slide into stereotype, except it's who she is, right? And so you just totally buy it. And you immediately know that she is one of these people who is going to be on the mayor's side. And we have these what do you call it? These local community leaders, business leaders who are invested in the survival of their town, survival of their business. And they don't play around. You know, when she was on the beach with her husband, she was like, oh, don't bother Brody, blah, blah, blah. But when it's time to get down to business, she is down to business. I don't want to joke around this. It's not funny. People's lives are at stake. So she takes it, or people's money's at stake as well. She takes it very seriously.
Is that $3,000 bounty on the shark in cash or check?
I don't think that's funny at all.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's so great.
It's great. So we settle everything down. The mayor asks Brody to speak, and immediately all the crowd wants to know is, are you going to close the beaches?
Yeah.
And like a politician, Brody tries to not answer that question.
We're going to put on the extra summer deputies as soon as possible. And then we're going to try and use shark spotters on the beach.
Are you going to close the beaches?
And there's a pause.
Yes, we are.
And the reaction's huge.
It's a watermelon cantaloupe type of thing. Everyone is talking now. Everyone's expressing concern about what's going to happen. And, like a true politician, the mayor reads the room and immediately changes course on how long they're closing the beaches, which I think is there's politics versus civil leaders, you know?
I'm sorry, John. I think I'm going to need a little more explanation on the watermelon cantaloupe thing.
Oh, you've never heard this?
No, I have, but I don't know that everyone in our audience has.
That's a fair point, yeah. One of the great explanations you'll ever see is in a film called Memories of Me with Alan King and Billy Crystal. And they talk about what it's like to be an extra on set. And I was an extra for, 4 or 5 months on Wind Talkers, which was a crash course on being an extra on set. And one of the things they talk about is that in days past, I don't know if they do it that much nowadays, but when you would have crowd scenes in movies and there was a big reveal, like in a court scene or in a, public scene somewhere, the shortcut that they found that worked really well with background actors and extras talking was to not actually have them saying complete sentences to each other. You would say, watermelon, cantaloupe, watermelon, cantaloupe. So it sounds... Yeah, cantaloupe, watermelon. So it sounds like you're saying really something like important, and you put the emotion behind it. Like if you're shocked or you're angry or you're happy, you put the emotion behind saying watermelon cantaloupe, and you say it fast and sort of under your breath or with a little bit of volume, so it's not too noticeable what the words you're saying, so that it becomes a murmur when the definition of a murmur when everyone is saying it at the same time. So, and you're looking at each other, well, watermelon cantaloupe. So it becomes a whole thing, and so. I love that when you see that in crowd scenes, and it's fun to catch it. And it was a great lesson in that underappreciated Billy Crystal film, Memories of Me.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because I think in the entire history of the Cine-Files, this one we've never mentioned, which is, and I think it's actually important in terms of how films are made, because if you're looking at a crowd scene and there's two people talking and you see everybody talking in the background, most of the time they are mouthing it. They're making zero noise because you want the cleanest audio possible for your main characters. And then they'll dub everything later. But if they do want noise, what they don't want is an errant sentence to pop out and everybody to hear, like, why are they talking about Jersey cows going to market? Like, that it doesn't make any sense. So you don't want the audience to hear anything that makes sense, which is why you have them say watermelon calamine. I've heard peas and carrots. I've heard all these, like all sorts of things that have a lot of vowel sounds and a lot of consonants, but aren't ever going to make sense if an audience happens to catch a word.
Yeah, because like you said, you don't want the line sticking out. And if the line does stick out and you use a great take, you're going to have to pay that actor scale.
That's another point,
because it's heard and you can see them on screen. And that's part of the laws and regulations when it comes to SAG and background work. Yeah.
But by the way, and it's totally throwaway, and I wouldn't point it out as a film ways, but it's just how excellent this movie is nothing is brought in without a plant.
Yeah.
And in the midst of all this arguing...
We're also planning to bring in some experts from the Oceanographic Institute on the mainland.
Which is the plant that Hooper's coming. Is it important? No, it's not. But there's nothing wasted in Jaws.
No. And I like that he's saying it as a way of kind of like getting it across as well. Like, no, we're doing this. And he thinks he's coming from a place of like, we're handling the business, we're handling the problem, but they don't even hear it because all they're focused on is you're closing the beaches and you're affecting my business and my money.
And then as the cacophony of watermelon cantaloupe is rising, we hear the mayor's voice cut across everything when he says,
Only 24 hours.
I didn't agree to that.
Only 24 hours.
I love that shot of Brody turning in utter shock at what the mayor is doing. Once again, Brody is caught out by this mayor. And this is the thing. There's a mini arc going on in the relationship between Brody and the mayor. Like, the mayor is getting the best of him in every one of these situations and fooling him. And Brody, all the way up until that attack on the guy in the pond, Brody is one step behind the mayor, maybe a couple steps behind the mayor, because the mayor knows this town. He knows how to play this town, and he's playing Brody a little bit. And so he looks like the good guy by saying only 24 hours. Brody looks like the bad guy for being for wanting more. So when he surprises Brody with this is done on purpose. Politicians do this shit all the time and screw over civil leaders because they're worried about their careers as well. So in a room full of people worried about their own personal issue, worried about their own personal finances or status, Brody is the only one who's out here trying to actually do the right thing amidst all of that, you know?
So I'm not going to name any names, but I'm sure people can figure it out. I have seen this so many times. I'm glad you mentioned it, of a politician on stage and someone's next to them.
Yeah.
When something gets said and you could see that deer in the headlights sort of this exact moment. I didn't agree to that. And now they're on stage. And here's my question for you.
Yeah.
So the mayor, do you think he always planned on the only for 24 hours line, or do you think it was a wait and see and went for it in the moment?
100% wait and see.
That's what I think too.
I think every politician worth their salt has about 5 to 6 options for every situation, depending on how the crowd reacts.
Yep.
And the good ones know how to read the crowd, which is why a lot of great politicians are essentially performers, because they know how to read a crowd. And if the crowd goes in one direction, they know instinctively what to say to try to get the crowd back on their side, if they're good at it.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, it's not an accident that he had Brody lead with closing the beaches, and then he came in behind Brody and said, but only 24 hours, only 24 hours. And his protest, Brody's protest, gets lost in the screams of the townfolk.
Yeah, that's totally what I think too. Yeah. I think he knew it was a possibility, and he was waiting to see how the people reacted. And when he saw it going south, he jumped in.
And he cleared it with the board behind Brody's.
I agree. I bet he did. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but I bet he did. So then the chaos is everywhere. Brody's upset. People are yelling. Everybody's arguing. And in midst of this chaos, we hear unmistakable sound of nails on a chalkboard.
The great Robert Shaw, man. What do you want me to say about Robert Shaw? This is the film that made him. Yes, he was great in Taking of the Pelham 1, 2, 3. He was nominated for an Oscar for A Man for All Seasons, a film that, again, criminally underappreciated in his resume. But this is the film that made him. And I love Quint. Quint is probably, as I said earlier, my Long John Silver. He is my favorite character from when I was a kid. I've always identified with him in the movie. Although as I get older, I find myself identifying at times with Brody and identifying at times with Richard Dreyfuss's character, with Hooper. But like, this is my man. And I think his performance is incredible here. And this is a Shakespearean actor. This is a well-trained actor who comes in, a British actor who comes in and delivers truly an iconic performance, Steve. Maybe arguably top 10 greatest performances from the 1970s in terms of its iconography, you know.
In a movie filled with excellent performances.
Yes.
His steals the fucking show every time he's on screen. And I love Scheider and Dreyfuss in this. I think they're fantastic, but Robert Shaw is off the charts. And it's funny, he has one of those careers because he's never not good. I remember we did a watch along a few years ago of From Russia with Love, where he plays the Bond villain.
Right.
He's fantastic. I haven't seen Man for All Seasons in a long time. I love that movie when I watched it decades ago.
Right.
And he's great in this. And he had just come off a little movie with Zanuck and Brown called The Sting, where he's also fantastic. And sadly, he dies like a couple of years later after this film comes out from a heart attack. And it's like, this could have been, it's one of those careers where every single thing he did is great.
Yeah.
But who knows what else he could have done.
I think he would have been rediscovered all over, just like Sean Connery was, right? Because you talk about his resume, right? From Russia with Love, you talk about that. Battle for the Bulge, A Man for All Seasons, The Battle of Britain, These are well-known films here. The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, for God's sakes.
He's in the Golden Voyage of Sinbad?
Yes, he's
that was a big
uncredited
movie when I was a kid.
He's uncredited as the Oracle of all knowledge. So then you follow up with The Sting, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, Jaws. Then he does Robin and Marion, the Sean Connery one. He plays the Sheriff of Nottingham. Black Sunday, which is one of those like closet favorite ones, like guilty pleasure ones from the 1970s, where they're trying to drop a bomb in the middle of the Super Bowl through a dirigible. He was in The Deep, which is kind of is a film that a lot of people don't remember from the 1970s. That was really good. I think it's him and Nick Nolte and Jacqueline Bisset in that.
So that movie, just very quick.
Sure. I
went to that movie at the Tiburon Playhouse, which is the tiny movie theater in the small town where I grew up, with my sister when it came out, and that movie scared the crap out of me. It was way too intense for my age.
It was.
And I have I didn't remember that it was Robert Shaw, and I haven't seen it probably since.
It almost, that film is almost like a precursor to Against All Odds, because Robert Shaw essentially playing the James Woods character, kind of. And in his final, one of his final films, Force 10 from Navarone, which is one of my favorites, and that's with Harrison Ford and Carl Weathers, and it's a sequel to the Gregory Peck one, The Guns of Navarone, with him and Anthony Quinn. So yeah.
So initially, would you like to know who Spielberg wanted to play Quint?
Oh yeah, please.
Makes perfect sense. It's a different thing, and that's Lee Marvin.
Oh wow.
Like it's a different thing.
But it makes sense, right? Because got that actually old fart thing.
I love Lee Marvin's response to Spielberg. He's like, I'd actually rather just go fishing for real than do your movie about fishing for a shark. So he says no. The next person he went after is the person that's been named over and over again as people that always want him in their movies and frequently doesn't show up, and that is Sterling Hayden.
Oh man, Sterling Hayden would have been an interesting choice. Both these are choices. These are good choices. These choices work. They probably wouldn't have been as dynamic as Robert Shaw, but they would have been good choices.
I think things that happened with Robert Shaw, I agree, couldn't have happened. Lee Marvin's not going to do. Lee Marvin's great. I love Lee Marvin.
Yes.
But he's not going to have all the levels and insanities of Robert Shaw.
The vulnerability of the USS Indianapolis monologue alone, I don't think Sterling Hayden or Lee Marvin would have had that extra thing. That's not saying they couldn't play vulnerable. Certainly they've played vulnerable in other situations, but like the way Robert is vulnerable in that.
Oh yeah.
In that monologue is devastating. Well, I don't think either one of them would have gotten there.
I hadn't thought about it until you just said it, but the other reason they couldn't have done it is that Robert Shaw wrote the final draft of that monologue.
Right.
So it wouldn't exist,
and Robert was a writer. He was a novelist as well. So he's got that experience.
And I love, as the nails on the chalkboard sound continues, just all the looks from the passersby.
Yeah.
One of the secrets to introducing a character is to delay introducing the character.
Right.
So the time that we're hearing this sound and everyone's going, what is going on, is all building to the epicness of the introduction of Quint.
You all know me, know how I earn a living. I'll catch this bird for you, but it ain't gonna be easy. Bad fish. Not like going down the pond chasing bluegills or tommycots.
So when they go to the island, they're like, look, Robert Shaw's a great actor. He's British. He's a British Shakespearean actor. We want to make sure that he really gets the local patois, the rhythm of the dialogue, the sense of the locals. And so they basically put out an ad. We want a fisherman to hang out with Robert Shaw.
Oh, wow.
So they look around, they meet a bunch of guys, and the guy they like the most is this guy named Craig Kingsbury.
Okay.
Craig Kingsbury is who we will later see as Ben Gardner in the movie.
Oh.
And it sounds like he is the local character. Like maybe a bit of a drunk, tells nothing but tall tales. I saw his daughter interviewed who said, yeah, I think Mr. Shaw might have actually believed what my father was saying was the truth. Because as they hung out together, Robert Shaw loved him. And as they hung out together, Robert Shaw was telling more stories about, a fisherman went out and did blah, 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 blah. And he caught a shark that got eaten by a whale. And then, just telling these tall tales, because that's what Craig Kingsbury said. And so many of the lines that Robert Shaw says as Quint are actually things that Craig Kingsbury said. Including, it's not like going to the pond chasing bluegills or tommycods. That is a Craig Kingsbury line.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
This shark, swallow you whole. Shaking, tenderizing, down you go.
How do you feel about this guy at this point?
This is amazing. This is an amazing entrance for a character, and he is so confident and experienced in the things he's saying that you immediately believe him, right? Like because I mean, how many people live near a town like this or around a town like this? Not a lot of people, and so when you see someone coming in with this dialogue and this monologue that he essentially delivers, mini monologue, you have to immediately make him believable and make him sound experienced, so the audience goes, "Oh no, I believe this guy. You know, I'm in with this guy." And the way he's describing the shark, he understands the how can I say this? He understands his competitor really well. He understands the thing he's going to be going up against really well. That are shaking, that are tenderizing, swallow your whole. Like there's no question about it. Plus, I love that Robert added this kind of old shanty sound to his voice, like a seaman shanty sound to his voice, and it didn't slide into caricature. It was very believable. And there are hard-edged people like this in life. You meet them in life, and they're very authentically hard-edged, and he simply radiates that throughout this mini monologue.
I've never quite met a Quint, but when I was out on the shark boat with guys who drive boats and swim with sharks, there was some of that kind of swagger. And I think what's interesting is like there's certain times where you know as a filmmaker that you're going to have to write a check and you're really hoping you can cash it. And this is one of those cases where they're like, Spielberg knew from the beginning that Quint needs to steal the show. That's what has to happen in this moment. He has to show up and completely steal every single bit of focus from everything else in the movie and hold it. And so you set it up. We got the nails on the chalkboard. We've got our piece of script. We've got our guys in our costume. We got our extras. And now you turn over to Robert Shaw and it's like, are you going to deliver? Can you make this happen? Which obviously he completely does.
Yeah. And we got to do it quick. That'll bring back the tourists. That'll put all your businesses on a paying basis. But it's not going to be pleasant. I value my neck a lot more than $3,000, Chief.
This is one of our questions from one of our patrons and measure of our advisory board, Michael Gulick, who says, during the town meeting, while Quint is addressing everyone, he seems to call out Brody in particular. I got the feeling that Quint and Brody have probably had a few encounters since Brody came on as chief, probably noise and or smell complaints from Quint's neighbors, which I think is a good point, Michael. So, John, what do you think about the relationship between Brody and Quint before the film starts, and why is he addressing things to Brody in this scene?
So I can answer it two ways. Let's deal with the reality of the film. But I mean by that, the actors, right? You want to cast actors that immediately have a camaraderie, right? If you want them to be the characters that you're going to be following with. Now, it could be battles and then end up being friends, that kind of, but there's a camaraderie, there's an equalness, right? And so for me, I think the relationship between the two of them is an equal relationship. Like Quint knows what he can do and he's very confident what he can do. Brody is very confident what he can do on his side of things. And so you have them meeting as equals. Now, in terms of the actual world of the film, I think they have had a relationship in terms of the fact that there have been complaints, and he's probably heard stories about Quint. And so when he had his first interaction with Quint, he realized maybe that, and this is all my headcanon, that the people in the town were making up some of these stories. The thing that I think where they really connect, though, is that they're both outsiders. And by that, I mean, Quint very much looks down on the people in the town. And that's the reason he's addressing the chief. He's not addressing the mayor or any of the citizens. And he's even kind of smirking when he says, that's how I'll save your businesses and, save the summer and all that kind of stuff that he says. He knows that these people, all they are looking for is money. And maybe in his own mind, he thinks that's kind of, shallow because of his own opinions. But he has kept himself separate. And I think he is suffering the trauma of the USS Indianapolis still, which is what keeps him from making strong connections with anyone else. Yeah, he's got that little guy that follows him around, but that guy's not going to challenge him in any way, shape, or form. So there is, I think, a kinship in the fact that Brody's coming in from the outside world. He's coming from New York, so he's dealt with some really serious shit in the city. He's coming out to this smaller town, and so he feels almost a sense of like respect for Brody, and vice versa, I think, because Brody's dealt with characters like Quint in New York City, I'm sure. So I think that's the relationship before the film starts. I don't think it's quite as extensive that they've had a number of interactions, but I think they've had enough to establish a certain kind of respect for each other.
It's funny. This is one where I think I see it differently from you. And there's obviously no right answer here. There's no way to specifically know. But my feeling about Quint in relation to Brody is he has a way of treating him with disrespectful respect or condescending approval. Like there's this contradiction in the words that he
who
says.
Has who treats who with condescension?
Quint treats Brody with disrespectful respect.
Okay.
Which is that he'll call him chief.
Right.
And he'll say, but he actually speaks to him in a very condescending way through a lot of the movie. And we'll point them out as we go. Like my feeling about Quint is that he has a very strong hierarchy of what people are worth something and what people are not.
Yes.
And islanders are worth something. Fishermen in particular are worth something because they work for a living. There's a real working, as Hooper says later, I don't need this working class hero crap.
Yeah.
I think Quint very much is like people who are outsiders are lesser than. And I also think like the townspeople, the locals, the islanders, who are the shopkeepers, those people are lesser than a guy who goes out and hunts sharks for a living.
Yes.
And he's a little condescending to them.
Yeah.
And so there's this weird, but this is why I say it's respectful disrespect. He calls him chief. And he does, it's like, and when we get on the boat, the dynamics between Hooper, Quint, and Brody are fascinating.
Yeah.
And so there's so
all the time.
Yeah. And it's complicated. Like there's not easy ways to see it. But my gut in general is I don't think they've had a ton of interactions up to this point. I think more by reputation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And maybe to even add a little bit more to what you said, Steve, in your point of view of it, like who led them into the USS Indianapolis? It was the people in charge. So he may have a healthy skepticism so that what you're talking about, the respectful disrespect, is there for anybody of note that or status that he decides to address, you know?
I mean, I think we can agree that Quint is not big on authority figures.
Yes, very true.
I'll find him for 3, but I'll catch him and kill him for 10. And you gotta make up your minds. You wanna stay alive and ante up? You wanna play it cheap? Be on welfare the whole winter.
It's all so good. I mean, it's just like every piece of his ad, just the fact that he's like eating something.
Yeah.
You know, and you could see the reactions of the room to him are Quint is different.
Yeah.
He's not an ordinary human. He's a different kind of person.
Almost every town has someone like this.
Sure.
You've heard the legendary. And I agree with you, Steve. It's great to point out the eating, which is very difficult to do in a mini monologue like this, to coordinate it correctly. The folding of the arms, which conveys confidence. There's little moves he makes as an actor. And there's a term that's been going around for the last few years called a pipe bomb. In essence, what he's done is pipe bomb. And dropping that monologue and walking out. That's a pipe bomb moment.
I've never heard this. So that's sort of just like a big reveal or a big...
Yeah, you're dropping something, explodes in the room, and you'll walk out. And that's kind of... And you see it in wrestling all the time, the pipe bomb promo. Well, not all the time, but you see it occasionally, the pipe bomb promo. When it hits real hard. And it's telling the truth mixed in with a little bit of the false storyline stuff. And so what he's doing here, though, is telling the truth. And he explains the shark and what could happen. And then he says to them, you know, you guys are going to be on welfare all summer if you don't do something. And then walks the fuck on out. So he leaves it for them to deal with the shrapnel of what he just dropped.
Yeah. And the next line, the heaviness of it, I think is different from what we've heard up to this point.
I don't want no volunteers. I don't want no mates. There's too many captains on this island. $10,000 for me by myself. For that, you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
It's just such a period on a speech, you know? And I love the awkwardness, because the room, the mayor, Brody, the townspeople, they don't know what to do with this at this moment. You know, later on, they're going to know exactly what to do with Quint. But at this moment, they don't. And the mayor says,
Thank you very much, Mr. Quint. We'll take it under advisement.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you think the mayor and Quint went to high school together? Do you think there is a relationship with some of these people, that he knows these people from going to school? Because I don't imagine that he went to college. So do you think he went to middle school, grew up in this town, like knew these people, knew the mayor who might be correlative age-wise to him? And so the way he says that is almost like the nerd to the jock. I thank you, Mr. Quint. We'll take it under advisement. Like he's a little unsettled by it. So do you think that there is this thing where Quint was this like high school star, but then the war happened and the war messed him up. And since he came back, he hasn't been who he was and stuff like that. And so people now who maybe had relationships with him in the past are a little more like distant in their interactions with him. And cautious because they don't know what Quint's going to do.
Dude, I've never thought of that. And I think that is an amazing question because, well, I don't have to tell you that it was an amazing question. It was your question. You probably know why it's amazing. What's so exciting to me, because I hadn't thought about, you're right, is that the mayor and Quint are probably around the same age.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which means that the mayor probably also served in World War II.
Good points.
But he was an officer.
Yeah, he was an officer in HQ or something. Yeah.
And so one of the things, and this is one thing that is definitely highlighted more in the book, is that there's a real class structure on the island.
Yeah.
There's locals, there's summer people, there's wealth that's there, and then there's the working people.
Yeah.
So my guess is, let's say they went to high school together. And Larry, the mayor, was the class president.
Yeah.
And popular and good looking. And Quint was the son of a fisherman who came to school sometimes stinking of fish because he had worked, because he couldn't afford the nice clothes and stuff like that.
Right.
And he was a tough guy. I'm just making this up off the top of my head. But here's the thing why I'm so excited that you brought this up. They both go off to World War II.
Yes.
And when Quint comes back, he is never the same.
Right.
And so Larry, who went to high school with him, knows this guy, and it's like, he went off the deep end after his experience on the Indianapolis. I think that is a key piece of character background that never occurred to me.
There's a fun fan fiction you can write that they were friends in high school. Like the mayor was the quarterback of the football team, and Robert Shaw was like the left tackle defending the blind side. And they were friends, and then they went off to war, but because the mayor had come from a richer family, he got to get a cushier spot. He was at HQ. He survived the war, no problem, no PTSD, no drama. But Quint, because he's of lower class, had to go into be one of the grunts, and he served on and survived and he was different. And when he came back, their relationship deteriorated because of what he'd experienced, and the mayor had political aspirations, and Quint, he couldn't be around Quint to achieve his so it's an uneasy relationship. So there's possibilities. Or they never knew each other at all in high school. Sure. I don't know. I just don't know.
And who knows? I mean,
it seems like a small island, you would know each other. Yeah.
I would think that they would know each other. But what's interesting too is the actors were stuck on this island for month after month after month. So I bet they talked about this.
Oh yeah.
And then I love the moment when Quint gets up and the smirk on his face as he says goodbye.
Mr. Mayor, Chief, ladies and gentlemen.
The pause is everything, right? The great actors know where to put the pause. The pause is there where he smirks at the ladies and gentlemen because he knows he's doing it in a condescending way. It's brilliant.
And then he goes out followed by, a local, obviously his mate, which, by the way, this guy, his look is great. I mean, he's just like, he looks like that guy.
Yeah.
And the problem with casting locals is sometimes they can't act.
Yes.
And so they had a couple of scenes with Quint and this guy, and Spielberg was like, this is not going to work. He's great walking around, but we can't have this guy talking. He can't do that particular gig. So I would like to digress for a moment.
Oh, we haven't digressed enough. Where are we going now?
Look, we're going to be on Jaws until we're done with Jaws. That's my feeling.
It's very true.
In the last episode, you asked me if I would close the beaches.
Yes.
And I was not satisfied with my answer. And I would like to readdress that now. So the answer, of course, is if I'm in the movie Jaws, the right decision is close the beaches. That's a no-brainer. Because we all know the movie is called Jaws. We know from the beginning there's a killer shark killing people, and anybody who disagrees is obviously wrong in putting people's lives at risk.
Yeah.
And the same is true if you're in a vampire movie or werewolf movie or whatever movie.
Yeah.
They're going to be people that are suspicious of that conclusion because there aren't vampires and there aren't werewolves. So they would argue against it. And if you're in a vampire or werewolf movie, you would be wrong.
Yeah.
But if this was reality and one woman died offshore from a fatal shark incident, and you said, do you want to close the beaches after the first death? My answer is absolutely not. There is no reason to do so. And one of the pieces of evidence is, like I think I said, is that there was recently in the last 10 years or so, the first fatality off the coast of Massachusetts in 80 years. So if there had been a girl that died, let's say it was in 1975, well, that was 40 years after the last one. And so, no, I think it would be a huge overreaction to close the beach. After the second death, then I would probably up my concern a great deal, and I would put out spotters and all those other things, I still don't know that I would close the beaches because it would still seem like extremely unlikely.
Okay.
And here's what I was trying to say last time, and hopefully I'll say it better, which is that one of the things that our humans are terrible at is managing risk. We tend to respond to emotional anecdotal stories. So we hear, and this is what everybody uses to rile us up with fear. Everybody all the time is telling us we should be really scared of and list whatever fucking thing you want. The end of democracy, climate change, crime, immigration, terrorists, Muslims, black people, Jews, whatever it is, there's going to be someone who is going to tell you an anecdote of why you should be scared of that.
Yeah.
And sharks are the ultimate example of how we can be completely scarred by an anecdote and not think realistically or statistically. That's why I was interested in doing great white shark documentaries. It was not the sharks. I actually don't care that I'm not the huge animal person, nature doc guy.
Right.
It's the humans that interest me. Why is it that sharks that are essentially statistically zero threat to us scare the fucking crap out of us? And it's a good example of how our world tries to manipulate humans through fear constantly.
Yeah.
So speech over. Did you want to? Did you have things you want to respond to?
No, it would turn into a 40-minute discussion about, because you say humans are terrible at risk. I don't know any section of anything that are not. So there is. I don't know what the test group is. Are there better creatures on the planet that?
No, I'm not saying there are better creatures on the planet. No, I'm just saying
we're all driven, but that's instinctively, and I think animals are driven by fear as well, right? Certain areas, and so fear is a powerful, powerful emotion. So you're right about that.
Yeah, it's why. But the point is not let's find a better species to deal with risk than humans.
Yeah.
The point is this is a thing humans need to constantly work on and constantly be vigilant against how easily we are manipulated by fear and risk.
It's tough because fear sometimes is an important component of surviving a dangerous situation, having a healthy amount of fear of the situation. I know for me, fear has gotten me out of quite a number of situations that turn sideways later. And so you just you have to trust your instincts, but you're also right, Steve, in managing these feelings, because that'll turn you into a hermit, by the an agoraphobe almost, where you don't want to leave the house because everything can hurt you, and you'll end up like Gene Hackman at the end of the conversation, sitting in a corner because you're afraid of that anything could come for you. And so, yeah, I hear you 100%.
I think a good test is when someone's presenting, hey, you should be really scared of this. Try to take a moment to think about what do you think, and every individual will come up with it differently, are the top 3 or 5 threats to the human race, the biggest things we're facing.
Yeah.
And then compare those to the top 3 or 5 topics that are discussed on the news and social media, and they are not the same. You know, it's not saying those things on the news aren't important. It's saying that the scale is what we have to work on.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got a bunch of closed beach signs spread around the town, and we have Roy Scheider sitting in a gorgeous corner location of the house with this beautiful warm lighting and the ocean behind the windows in the distance, and he is looking at a shark book.
Yeah.
I love they have a little jump scare with Ellen when she startles him.
Oh, God. You scared me.
Yeah, I know. She's great. Like when she does that, she's like, oh God.
It's like the anti-horror movie jump scare in a weird way.
Right,
you know what I mean? It's exactly the opposite of what horror movies really do.
You know, Alan, people don't even know how old sharks are. I mean, if they live 2,000-3,000 years, they don't know.
Totally not true. I don't know where this wasn't even a thing in the 70s. I think what they conflated, I think, that we don't know how long sharks have been on the planet.
All right.
And maybe someone saw that we don't know how old they are, as in sharks are around, 500 million years ago.
Right.
And they changed it to this. But this is not, we have a decent sense of how long sharks live.
Yeah, that book. But of course, he's reading a book, right? And what you just talked about fear and the importance of fear, right? But where does fear generate or begin? Sometimes it's reading a book written by an author who's taken a set of facts and presented it in a certain way in order to get the most amount of people to react to it, right? And so clearly he's reading a book that has that info, or he thinks that book has that information in there, and that's what he's spewing out. Because I like the fact that he's like us, because I think a lot of people in the 1970s didn't know a lot about sharks and their migrating patterns, their eating patterns, all that. So Roy Scheider and Brody, in essence, is the audience, right? We're discovering it as he goes along as well about what's going on with sharks. But I hear you. Some of the facts can be twisted, and that could affect people's interpretation of the shark. Yeah.
Well, and I would say even bigger than the facts is, and this is one of the things that's one of the reasons we have such hard time analyzing these things statistically, is there are no photos in this book of people who didn't get bitten by sharks.
That's true.
They're only the photos in the book of the people that did get bitten by sharks.
Well, those books don't sell.
Dude, it's literally a line in my second shark documentary of we cannot, where Hoover's talking about we cannot sell this movie unless we get great shots of teeth and biting.
Yeah.
Because that's what sells the movie.
100%. Shark Week isn't a big thing in Discovery Channel because nobody's interacting with sharks. It's all about what the sharks do and the power of sharks. Yeah.
Right. Well, and this is where it's like, and this is why the fear is so high, because that's all we're seeing, you know?
You're right. 100%.
So I love the moment, and it's just so human. And so I don't think anyone said anything like this in a movie in quite this way. She hands him a drink and says,
"Want to get drunk and fool around?"
Oh, yeah.
And it's just so like, they're not a young, sexy couple. This is a mature couple in a mature relationship who are going to have some drinks and have sex. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. And he's, how can we say this? Like, Brody carries the weight of the world on him throughout the whole movie. And so Hooper, and even Michael, and Sean find the moments to sense their dad's hangdoggedness and try to make him feel better about things.
They know he's a really, really good man.
Yeah, and that he cares. But caring weighs on him.
Hey, Mikey really loves his present.
Where is it?
Sitting in it.
And he gets up, runs to the window. We have Sean, the little kid, is on top of the little dock. Yeah. And then Michael is sitting in the little sailboat in the water. And Brody freaks out.
All right, Michael, out of the boat.
And Ellen walks up to try to talk him out of it. And I think this is so great. It's such great character stuff.
I don't want him on the ocean.
He's not on the ocean. He is in a boat. He's not going to go in the water. I don't think he'll ever go in the water again after what happened yesterday.
Again, you just mentioned a really sweet interaction between them. First, the scare, and then the talking about fooling around. But quickly, they become the parents.
Yeah.
And battle over the raising of the children in a certain quick flash moment. And she yells at him. Then Brody, of course, backs down because he realizes, how far he's let his fear, as you mentioned earlier, take him to that point.
Well, this is why he's a really good guy, because the hard parenting decisions are not where there is a clear right and a clear wrong.
Right.
The hard parenting decisions is where you're afraid and worried for your kid's future and realize that your fear and worry could damage their future, and you're trying to balance those two things.
Yeah. You're trying to navigate that, yeah.
Now, don't say that. I don't want that to happen. You know that.
And he says, but I want him to read the boating regulations and the rules and all that stuff. And when she's talking about this, she's looking at the book and sees an image of a shark attacking a rowboat and immediately switches sides and goes,
"Did you hear your father? Out of the water now! Now!"
We've all heard that second now.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And I love his, disbelief and humorous face at how things have switched so quickly.
Well, it's so funny. I'm sure you've had this no, I just conceded to your point.
Yeah.
I just said you win. You just jumped over to mine. It's later at night. Two guys row up to a dock.
I'm tired. Let's stop before someone reports us.
Don't worry. The chief lives on the other side of the island.
So we see him pull out a big chain with a big hook and a big hunk of meat.
We better catch something. This is my wife's holiday roast.
Don't worry about it. $3,000 buys an awful lot of roast.
Can we just say, John, that this is a stupid plan?
Well, look at the two guys. This is the kind of dumb shit that happens all the time. Once you dangle money out there, dumb people are going to try to go get that money because they don't have a lot of money. And so, these guys. But this is a great humorous moment, right? We've just had the introduction of Quint. We just had Brody and his wife go at it over the situation with Michael in the boat. And so you have these stressful moments. And then you have this as a little bit of comic relief, a little bit of the air out, even though it also furthers the danger of the shark.
Come and get it.
So they toss the roast out in the water and the tide takes it right out. And then immediately one of the guys says,
Can't we go home?
and this is this thing Spielberg said that I never thought about it. He thinks the theme of the movie is going home.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
It's about safety. It's about not being out in the world that is dangerous, but being and chaotic, but about going home to where it's safe.
Yeah.
And then we intercut with Brody continuing to look through the book, and we have this theme that I call the mystery of the deep, which is this sort of mysterious harp sound. And this sort of plays, it's kind of where the shark might be present.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like there's, to me, emotionally, I don't know how you feel about it. This particular theme gives me a sense of the vast expanse and mystery of the ocean.
Agreed.
That it is unknowable and incredibly huge.
Yes.
You know?
Agreed, brother. And it comes back, of course, at the end of the movie. So, yeah, I like this theme.
I love that we're seeing the book through the reflection on Brody's glasses. I mean, so many details in this movie. They're so good.
Yeah.
And then we see what we were talking about before. We see big jaws and wounds, dude's shredded leg, and someone has their side bit out, and really, really scary stuff.
Yeah.
Back to our yahoos sitting on the dock. They're whistling, and then you hear the shark theme. And we see the chain go out.
Hey, he's taking it. He's taking it. He's taking it.
And one of the guys, Charlie, is at the end of the pier. The supports pull out from under the pier, and Charlie goes in the direction. Again, to be clear, if the shark had worked, this would not have been in the movie because you would have seen a shark. The reason that the pier, like the barrels and the music, is a stand-in for the shark that doesn't work.
Right.
You know? Yeah. So Charlie gets dragged out, and we see the pier going away. And of course, as the shark gets farther away, the music gets quieter and slows down. And that groaning sound as the pier turns back to Charlie. And instead of just having the double bass play the shark theme, now the whole orchestra is playing it. And that tells us that the shark is on the tack. And we see basically, all it is they're dragging a big piece of wood as a pier behind this guy who's swimming. And yet it's fucking terrifying.
It is terrifying, yeah. And because of the way it's being shot and the close-ups of him flailing in the water as he's trying to swim and his friend yelling at him to swim faster, all of it just building the tension of the moment.
You're so right. And Verna Field's editing is just like the timing of how close that pier is getting to him, how heavy the music is just driving at him. And again, those Bill Butler camera box at the water level shots of Charlie swimming towards camera put us so in his world. And we feel that shark is like inches away from his feet as he's scrambling up that wood incline to make it onto the dock.
Yeah.
And then he makes it, and they just sit there gasping, and he says,
Can we go home now?
And immediately you have a window into their relationship. The guy that fell in the water is clearly the guy who drives their relationship. He's the one that gets this other dude into situations, and they do stupid shit all the time. They're probably known in the town for this. Is like Norm and Cliff from Cheers. This is essentially what this is. And so, you know, when they pull him up and he's like, can we go home now? It's because like he's done. Like, and that's his weak attempt to be like, look, I'm done with this stuff, you know. So it's very funny. And the adds attention to is this is a heavier guy who's out of shape, and he's wearing full clothes.
Yeah.
Right. So it's adding more weight to him trying to swim out of that situation. So it's perfect.
I think that if they were young when this happened, they would be like the two kids with the fake shark fin who went out and said, Charlie's totally, he made me do it.
I would not be surprised if those two kids are the kids of those.
Oh my God. Done. Right? It's in my head canon from now on. Those are the two kids, and the he made me do it kid is Charlie's kid.
Yes.
And the other kid is the kid whose idea it was. Totally.
100%.
You have actually predicted where the thing I wanted to bring up next, which is I have some statistics for you.
Okay.
And I believe that most people will find these statistics frightening. And I am going to try to prove to everyone that these statistics should make you feel safer.
Okay.
But maybe I will fail.
Okay.
So Charlie, dressed, as you said, fully clothed, not in that good shape, wearing shoes, trying to swim away from a great white shark.
Yeah.
The fastest human swimmer ever recorded is Cesar Cielo, who swam 100-meter freestyle at an average of 5.13 miles per hour.
Wow.
Michael Phelps is just a tad slow. I mean, a greater overall swimmer, but a tad slower. Right. If you give top free drivers flippers, they can do bursts up to 6.7 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the maximum of human speed. Would you like to know how fast a great white shark is?
Oh, my God. Go ahead.
27 miles an hour is their top speed.
Jesus Christ.
More than almost 5 times faster than the free divers with the flippers. What that means is that if there is a shark anywhere near you in the water and it wants to take a bite, there is absolutely no way you can swim away from it.
Right.
It's like trying to swim away, it's like trying to swim away from a car. You can't do it.
Yeah.
Charlie is not particularly fast. If that shark actually was a 25-foot great white after him, we saw how with the distances, it could have closed that distance in a half a second. Like there's just no way Charlie gets away.
Right.
So most people hear that and go, holy shit, I'm more scared of sharks. But what you should realize is that if they could get you anytime, they are actually could not to get you.
Right.
Because we are not on the menu. That's the actual lesson of that. They could, but they don't. Cut to, I call these the Yahoos. Like particularly the shot of this funny looking guy with the pipe and the captain's hat that comes out of the harbor master shack and he looks around with that goofy smile on his face.
Yeah.
The docks are just crowded with all sorts of crazy people, with all sorts of boats, with all sorts of weapons, with all sorts of setups.
Mrs. Kitner must have put her ad in Field and Stream.
Looks more like the National Enquirer.
Which, for you kids that are young, not young enough to remember or old enough to remember the National Enquirer, it was one of these, how can I say this, Steve? It's one of these, you would say a rag, I guess, that traded in on fantastic stories. Now, it didn't mean that they weren't always wrong, but they always went for the salacious stories, the gossip stories. And then I think occasionally would slide into the UFO stuff, and then Weekly World News kind of took that over for a while, claiming aliens walking amongst us and all that stuff. But yeah, the National Enquirer was like, you understood if people, there was a stereotype that the people who read that weren't of high intelligence. So in essence, that's what he's implying here.
And now, instead of having to buy a National Enquirer as an impulse buy at the checkout stand, you can just go online to social media and have conspiracy theories, lies, and madness just pumped directly into your brain.
Well, not just social media. Some networks do that.
And now we see Matt Hooper, played by Richard Dreyfuss, who this is in my top 2 Richard Dreyfuss performances, bar none. And I like Richard Dreyfuss. He's a strange man.
Yeah.
Dreyfuss. So 9 days before they started shooting, neither Quint nor Hooper had been officially cast.
Wow.
And so who are they going after for the character of Matt Hooper? All the young guys. John Voight. Spielberg says he auditioned every single male cast member from The Last Picture Show. So Tim Bottoms, Jeff Bridges, all those guys. Joel Gray auditioned to play Hooper.
Yeah.
Which would be kind of fascinating. Of course, he knew Dreyfuss from George Lucas's film, American Graffiti, where Dreyfuss was certainly a standout star.
Yeah.
He pitches the movie to Richard Dreyfuss, and the whole time, Dreyfuss says, it's on the end of his seat, one of the great stories he's ever heard, one of the great pitches. He's like, this sounds amazing. And Spielberg says, great, do you want to make the film? And Dreyfuss goes, absolutely not. He goes, why not? He says, well, this sounds like a great movie to watch. It doesn't sound like a great movie to shoot. So I think I'm going to pass. And then the next day, he had his first starring role in a feature film, which I think I've seen a long, long time ago, which is called The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz.
Yes.
Goes by himself to see himself in a movie and had a full panic attack. Wow. He had, and I believe you can relate to this thing.
Yeah.
Saw his face up on that big screen and went, I'm going to have to get a job real soon because nobody's ever going to hire me after this thing. So he calls up Spielberg and says, okay, I'll do it. And interestingly enough, Spielberg says, do not read the book.
Yeah.
Because that is not going to be your character. He felt the book would mislead him. One other thing that just is crazy to me about this.
Yeah.
Richard Dreyfuss at this time is 6 months older than Steven Spielberg.
Wow. Huh. Just 6 months. Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like this character is Spielberg, right, in a way. And I think he works so well because he's very clear about what he believes. You know, there's this perception of Spielberg that he's this nice guy. And look, he is a nice guy. There's no doubt about it. But as Steve said earlier in part 1, the man has steel in his spine.
Oh, yeah.
And he's very clear about what works and doesn't work for him. And I think too many people get confused that his E.T. movie or he's more like softer films or like who Spielberg is as a human being. And it's like, you can't be that kind of human being and make Schindler's List. you can't be this fictitious person that people think Spielberg is and make movies like Jaws or Duel or even Close Encounters, which has some really tough things that he encounters. So The Post, these are things that he explores. And so, yes, there is a stigma that he's kind of a Disney type of director, Disney-fied type of director, but I think that's so off base. And I think the way he has Hooper in this movie is essentially a stand-in for him throughout the film, because he, I'm sure there are people that questioned him because of his intelligence and nerdiness and all this kind of stuff. And he pushed back against those people all his life. And throughout the film, you see these moments where he does that, So it's a great choice. I love him in this role.
I think that narrative about Spielberg is just so ridiculous, and it's real. And it's because people underestimate. They underestimate Jaws. They underestimate E.T. They underestimate just because they go like, "Oh, this fits into a genre that I generally don't respect." That the movie should be respected. And I'll just say real quickly, I was listening to Fresh Air, and Pedro Pascal was on.
Yes,
and man, he the most transformative movie experience for him as a kid was The Color Purple.
Yeah.
And it's not a movie people talk about that much, but you know what? I mean, there's a lot in Steven Spielberg.
Yep.
I mean, okay, so and he comes up, walks right into this obvious guy that's a local.
Hello. Hello, Beck, young fella. How are you?
Well, guess what? That is Craig Kingsbury, who had been linked up with Robert Shaw and told all sorts of tall tales, and this is the character of Ben Gardner.
He sounds just like it. He sounds just like the guy that would. That's so perfect.
And we see people with dynamite. We see all sorts of chaos.
Yeah.
And Brody is running around trying to control the chaos, get people off boats, make sure there's some safety.
Well, please, help me get those guys out of the boat, will you please? Share with me. Gentlemen, the officer asked me to tell you that you're overloading that boat.
This, needless to say, doesn't go over well. What's so great, the energy Dreyfuss brings in is there's an amusement to it. He laughs at the ridiculousness of this.
There's a difference. I think all three of these guys are outsiders.
Yes.
Right? Clearly, obviously, Hooper and Brody, because they're coming from different states or different cities, right? Quint is because of his experiences or whatever, but he's not like everybody else. So when Hooper comes in, he has that air of the intelligent guy, right? The guy who's the science guy, the smart guy. And so having is, in essence, that moment is essentially jocks versus nerds. The nerd is saying, you guys are overloading the boat. The jocks are like, shut up, whatever. And then he's like, well, can you guys tell me a good restaurant or hotel? And he's like, yeah, just walk that way, straight ahead. And so, you see the back and forths between them. And he's like, oh, they're all going to die. And so you see, right? And that's the thing, the nerd versus the jocks. And a lot of these guys, or the idiots, I guess you might say as another term. But the guys on the docks are clearly all just a bunch of morons who are just trying to be the first. It's a Black Friday sale, basically, is what's going on the dock. And they're all trying to fight to get that Cabbage Patch Kid doll or that TV or that microwave that's reduced 50 to 75% so they can essentially make some money off of it. So, yeah, it's madness. And I like that he does that, plays with it. Yeah.
There's this thing of like, okay, what different personalities react differently to stressful and serious situations.
Yes.
Brody is a hunker down kind of guy.
Yes.
He's like, here's the situation. I'm going to face it head on, and I'm just going to put my head down and do the necessary work, whatever it takes to deal with the situation.
Right.
Hooper's going to be a step back because and I relate to this a lot. I'm kind of a mix of Hooper and Brody, I think. And is that when things get ridiculous, I do start to laugh. I mean, that doesn't mean I'm not taking it seriously. It just means that the ridiculous of life is funny, and that's kind of how I deal with it,
Yeah, no, 100%. And I thought about that because I was rewatching, as we said before we started the talking about it again. That scene where he's talking to the mayor after everything, and he just starts. He goes, "Oh, you'd love to get your name in the National Geographic," and he just goes, like it's just like because at that moment you realize like there's really no getting through this, and the situation is ridiculous so much so that you have to laugh instead of raging. You just have crossed that rage point into laugh because it's like this is just madness all around. So yeah.
And speaking of madness, Brody is like on the phone with Paula, and you could see him trying to do 17 different things at once. and he's giving orders to Polly. He's trying to get his deputy's attention. I love that he just like throws some rocks at the window to get his, like, come in here. And I'm sure you've had this where you're working with someone and you know you're in a desperate situation and you're busting your fucking ass.
Yeah.
And they're like lollygagging.
What are you doing out there? These are your people. Go and talk to them.
Those aren't my people. They're from all over the place. I'm all by myself out there. What happened to the extra help we're supposed to
That's not until the 4th of July. Between now and then, it's you and me.
You know those 8 guys in the fantail launch out there?
Yeah?
Well, none of them are going to get out of the harbor alive.
And I love Brody's reaction. See, this is what I'm talking about. Go talk to him, Hendrix. Get him out of that goddamn boat. So what do you, this is on purpose, right? The mayor could have easily brought him more deputies, but they want to catch this shark. And I think the mayor and the city council fucks Brody over here too by just leaving him. And they know Hendrix is essentially his Barney Fife. And so they don't want to stop all these people from coming because A, they're going to buy shit from the businesses around there. And B, they're going to try to catch the shark. And if they catch the shark, that's all they care about because that means everybody go back to the beach and they keep making money. So I do think that Brody and his deputy are left in the lurch here on purpose by the mayor and the council so that they can't stop all these people getting out on the water.
There's a weird thing that happens, and we've certainly seen this happen in our world politically recently, whereas once you take a stand on this side or that side of a thing, you have to behave as if your stand is correct, and you have to manipulate the data to prove that your stand was correct in the first time and not acknowledge anything that says that your stand might have not have been correct.
Yeah.
And it also implies a binary response, whereas there is only doing it this way or this way, and one of them has to be right and one of them has to be wrong, as opposed to situations can be complicated and there are many, many different responses. Like because the mayor could have said only for 24 hours, but you know what, Brody, you're right. We're not just we're going to triple the spotters. We're going to put a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to do all of these other things. So we're not closing the beaches, but we're going to do it. But that's not what they did. They actually, because Brody said, we're going to have the spotters and extra help earlier than the 4th, and they didn't get it.
Yeah.
Which is to your point, you know, that they fucked them.
Listen, could you tell me how I can find Chief Brody?
Who are you?
Matt Hooper. I'm from the Oceanographic Institute.
Roy Scheider's reaction to realizing that help is here is so great.
Oh, for Christ's sakes, you're the guy we called. I'm Brody.
Genuine warmth.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So most of the stuff that was shot on land was shot in the first half of the shoot, which is also the stuff that's in the first half of the movie. The main reason for that is the shark is not working. And they have the shark in a shop on the island, and they're working on it, and everybody's on walkies because all the, you have guys with walkies all over the whole island.
Yeah.
And Richard Dreyfuss describes that like literally every day, every hour, they would hear, the shark is not working. The shark is not working. And so then they're scrambling to go, what else are we going to shoot? And they didn't really have a script. So they're rewriting the script and trying to and they keep going like, well, tomorrow we're going to shoot with the shark. The shark is not working. And so they go, fuck, we can't shoot with the shark. What are we going to do tomorrow? And so what happened was they would shoot during the day. And then every night, Spielberg and everyone else would go to Verna Field's house, the editor, who also has a house on Martha's Vineyard. And they would show up with Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss and sometimes Robert Shaw and Carl Gottlieb. And they'd talk about what they shot the day. And then they'd talk about what they could shoot tomorrow. And all of them would have opinions. And then they would do improvs, and they would improv out some scenes, and then Carl Gottlieb would write some script, and Steven Spielberg would come up with a plan, and Verna Fields would approve it because having an editor's eye on all this is hugely helpful.
Right.
And then they would figure out what to shoot the next day. That's how this movie got made.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And this is why, and I hear you on the Geek Buddies all the time, that Marvel has said we never go into a movie without a script. Well, that's bullshit. And here's the thing about this. Students would come to me when they'd hear some of this stuff, because I would demand with this, not just me, but my school, you had to have a complete script. You had to have a shot list. You had to have foreplay. You had to have storyboards. You had to have permits. You had to have locations. You had to have schedules. You had to have budget. You had to do all that stuff before we'd say, okay, go and make your movie. And students would come and say, yeah, but Jaws is one of the greatest films of all time. That's not how they made Jaws. That's not how they made Apocalypse Now. That's not how they made all these other movies. And I'm like, the big thing, it's not that you can't make a movie with no plan. That's great. One can. But it's really fucking expensive. And you don't know what you're going to get. When you have a script in advance and everyone likes it and agrees upon it, you could shoot way more efficiently, way faster, way cheaper, and you have a better shot than just making it up as you go along.
It's madness. A lot of creatives think they're the exclusive one in the bunch, and it's like, you know what? If you hang on to the exceptions to the rule and think that's the rule, you're 9 times out of 10 you're going to get effed, you know. And so you're right. And the thing is, what they teach you in acting is correlative to directing. You want to learn as much as you can and throw away what you don't need and keep what you need. And the same thing with directing. You want to learn as much as you can, and then you'll be able to, you know, break the rules or flub certain things or be able to get away or go guerrilla if you need to, because you know what the rules are and you know how to operate within and around them. And so you have to learn them all in order to break them and know how they can be useful and how going against them can be useful for you as well.
Well, and the arrogance of that thought, because not only are you going like, I am essentially saying that I am not unlike Steven Spielberg, you know, but you're also saying that my team is as good as Shaw, Scheider, Dreyfuss, Verna Fields, John Williams, Murray Hamilton, Carl Gottlieb, Howard Sackler, and a whole bunch of other people, you know, like, so that's because that's what you need to pull this off.
Yeah.
We cut to Ben Gardner on the boat, driving towards camera, looking, you know, straight past us, monologuing. I don't even know what he's saying, but it's fantastic.
When we get them silly bastards down in that rock pile, there'll be some fun. They'll wish their fathers had never met their mothers when they start taking their bottoms out and slamming into them rocks, boy.
We all know that person who, well, hell, I do it sometimes too. Like they have an interaction in their head, some fantasy interaction, and all of a sudden they start bursting into a monologue about what they would say or how they would respond. And that, it seems to me like he has some idea in his head. He saw someone in a boat doing something, or some people in the boats, and so then he's having a whole conversation about how he's going to take care of them and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, what is happening? It's funny though. It's great color.
It just feels 100% real because it is.
Yeah.
And by the way, everything you hear Ben Gardner say in this movie is completely improvised. This is just how this guy talks.
It's amazing. But I love the madness of this all, Steve. Like everyone is clearly, there's no game plan. They're all trying to rush. Just like I said, this is Black Friday. They're all trying to rush through the door. One dope is dropping like fireworks into the water. Another dope is dropping chum very close to his boat that could be easily capsized by a 25-foot great white. And you're just like, these guys have no fucking plan. They're morons. And they're jumping out there and they're about to get, well, if the shark had been around that area, he would have had a field day on all those.
I mean, and it's this weird mix of, oh my God, these guys are idiots. This is so stupid. And it's kind of fun.
Yes,
in a way.
Right, of course, yeah.
It's weird. I mean, this movie just goes in has so much stuff in it.
Yeah.
We are at the morgue.
Oh man.
And there is the medical examiner, and Hooper walks up. He's got his headset on, which I think is actually the headset that Steven Spielberg was wearing connected to the walkies. It looks the same because I saw behind the scenes footage, and I wonder, it's one of those ones where I wonder if this was Dreyfuss's idea.
Yeah,
like
probably.
saw Spielberg with I don't know. And there's like a tub. The entire remains are in just a little tub, and he pulls back the sheet. And that reaction, the first time he sees it.
The torso has been severed in mid-thorax. There are no major organs remaining. May I have a glass of water, please?
I mean, this is an iconic, to the point of being ridiculed, Dreyfuss performance of dealing with, it's the mix of the science and the, I'm really, really trying hard not to throw up because this is really fucking horrible what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we haven't addressed the issue of how much is Hooper telling the truth about his experience and about his connection to the Oceanography Institute, right? Do we ever get that verified in the movie? I don't recall. Because,
wait, so what are you positing here?
Here's what I'm positing. I think the Oceanography Institute looked at this as like, this is, I don't know what this is, but we're not going to send one of our like 6-figure seasoned people to go out to this small ass town over this one or two shark attack, right? I don't think I just feel like it wasn't necessarily a big enough deal. So who do they send? They send one of their guys who's maybe an intern or is trying to be a part of the Oceanography Institute. So in essence, I kind of look at Hooper like Clarence in It's a Wonderful Life. And some people might be really upset about this because some people really love Hooper. But
does Hooper like a nice wine spritz?
I think what does he order at the bar? I forget what he orders at the bar, but
it's something heavy on the nutmeg.
Yeah,
it's a hot mold wine.
Yes,
heavy on the nutmeg, light on the cinnamon. I believe it's something like that.
I think Hooper would absolutely have that drink. And so I think he's trying to prove himself to the Oceanography Institute, and I think he's not 100% a member of the Oceanography Institute. I think he is a person who is there as an intern. And I think, what we find out later, that he comes from a family of money, that he bought all this equipment. It was not donated. The Oceanography didn't give it to him. He's tried to make himself part of the Oceanography Institute. And because his dad had so much money, he's probably got him through the door to a certain status. And I'm sure somebody at the Oceanography Institute is connected to his father and was like, all right, we'll let him come into this level, but we're not going to make it before. He's got to prove himself. And so this is in essence Hooper trying to get his wings, because his reaction to this body tells me that he has not seen many shark attacks in person, if at all. This may be the first one, because he is so overcome by what is happening here and indignant later in a few seconds to the ME. But he is standing there and he is literally losing his breath. He needs a cup of water. He is still professional and he's dictating to himself these things, but I don't think he's ever seen anything like this. So he operates from a place of shock and horror of the stuff, and then also trying to convey that he's more experienced on this stuff than he actually is. So that's how I see Hooper now when I see the movie. And I like it. It's a nice element of him trying to prove himself,
So I tend to agree with most of what you're saying. So my sense of Hooper has always been that he's a grad student in a PhD program. You know what I mean? He hasn't gotten the PhD yet. And this is what he's experienced, because I've hung out with shark scientists.
Yeah.
And Hooper rings totally true. In general, someone who comes, I'm not saying this can never happen and God bless the people where it does, but in general, poor folks don't become shark scientists.
Right. It's
that's not a pathway that's open to them because they have to survive.
Right.
And of course, that doesn't mean that someone without a ton of money can't be absolutely,
of course,
brilliant about nature and obsessed with all that stuff. So it tends to select from wealthier people to do this. As far as, and there are definitely people, because I knew them on the shark boat, that they'll fly around the world on their own dime just for a chance to get near a shark. That's how much these things mean to them. I also think, saying that I agree with you, Hooper has never seen this.
Yes.
But the reason he's never seen this is it's incredibly rare.
That's a fair point.
You know what I mean?
That's a fair point. Yeah.
It's just nobody has seen this. It really doesn't happen. And I think he is doing exactly what you're saying, which is trying to keep it together and be professional when he's having a whole internal thing going on. And this is the thing. I think throughout, Hooper cares a lot about what people think.
Yes.
And I think the dichotomy between I'm a spoiled, wealthy kid who grew up in privilege and can buy my own boat, and not wanting people to think of him as that.
Yeah.
He wants people to think that he is. And I think, I do think he is a good shark scientist. I do think that he is. I think he will be, my sense of him is this is a young guy with a lot of talent who could be really good at this, but he's still got a ways to go,
Yeah. Because no one ever verifies his credentials.
I mean, a guy shows up and says, "I'm from the Oceanograph." Did you check ID? I'm not too worried about it.
Of course, I would check ID. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I'm not so worried about it. But I understand your point. I don't know if there's a lot of fake shark scientists running around pretending they have credentials.
Well, he is almost Eugene Levy in Splash, right? Where everyone makes fun of him at the Institute, but they send him on these things, and he's got the mermaid is essentially the shark. And so I don't know. I just have these weird feelings about Hooper, because I love Hooper as a character, but I also think Hooper is flawed in a lot of ways in how he deals with this stuff. And so it helps me to see him in this way, because it helps me understand why he's so flawed in this approach to things. And it, as you said, and I think this is true, most scientists care about being accepted by other scientists. From my experience, I don't see too many scientists who are trying to tell Joe and Molly Schmo, believe in me, I'm smart, and is insecure about that. It's not them that they want to impress. It's the people who are established in their chosen fields. And so to see him be so unsettled by Quint and unsettled at times by other people, the mayor, it shows that he's still young and he's still not confident enough in his own abilities yet, which I think you alluded to earlier, Steve. So it adds a nice little extra layer of humanity to him and vulnerability that I find interesting as a character.
Well, hold that thought,
I
because
will.
I definitely want to circle back to that when we have the scene with Quint.
Yes,
because there's so much of that in there.
Right arm has been severed above the elbow with massive tissue loss in the upper musculature.
And I think Dreyfuss does a great job of playing the different layers of what's going on in this scene.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And one of which is disgust and nausea, and I'm trying really hard to keep my shit together. That's part of it. But there's also a building anger that's in this scene.
Yeah.
Because he knows this is a lie, that there was a lie on this report.
Yeah. And I want to make it clear. I'm not saying he's incompetent in his job. I'm just saying that he's not as established as he pretends to be. And I think that's important when you're watching or to think about that when you're watching his reactions to stuff. And I like his indignation, as you just pointed out, Steve, at the medical examiner, who perfectly acts and puts his head down, like, because he knows he's ashamed, because he knows he got pushed into lying on the report. You know,
I would frame it just slightly different from how you did, which is it's not that I think there's a difference between whether or not where his competence level is and his insecurity. I think his competence level is actually quite high.
Yeah.
But I think he's insecure that other people will believe that he's competent or will treat him with respect.
Right, because he comes from, because he might have bought him. Daddy might have bought him his way in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as you said, man, when he turns on that ME.
Partially denuded bone remaining. This was no boat accident. Did you notify the Coast Guard about this?
No. It was only local jurisdiction.
I think there's some real guilt, more guilt for Brody.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's the thing. We're building to the moment with Kitner, Alex's mom, Mrs. Kitner. We're building to this moment because we're showcasing Brody's out of his depth. He's overwhelmed. He doesn't know what to do in this situation because he's not experienced as a chief of police in this town dealing with a shark attack. And he doesn't know the town. He's still new to being the chief of police. So he's behind on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And now you bring in someone who is speaking with all these technical scientific terms, and Brody is even more overwhelmed. And when he gets called out for not going to the Coast Guard, so it's all building, right? So I love that, the way it's like just this little through line that's building over these last few scenes.
Well, this is not a boat accident. It wasn't any propeller. It wasn't any coral reef. And it wasn't Jack the Ripper.
He washes his face and then turns to camera and says,
"It was a shark."
It's great.
Yeah.
This is something I think I might have first used this term when we were talking about Close Encounters forever ago, which is the idea of completing the thought in the cut. And Spielberg is so great at this. And this is a perfect example. Yeah. Hooper says it was a shark. Cut to the bloody mouth of a shark being opened.
Yeah.
That is completing the thought in the cut. By the way, one detail, it's just millions of details. This shark, I don't know if you noticed, was killed by a bow and arrow. Because there is an arrow sticking out of the shark.
Yeah.
By the way, this is a real shark. They spent $10,000 on it. It was caught off the coast of Florida, and they had it shipped up to Martha's Vineyard. And from what I hear, it was pretty damn stinky by the time they were shooting this scene. This is real nasty. Gottlieb is trying to arrange some press, and Brody and Hooper are looking at the shark. And again, perfect storytelling. Brody, broad grin, smile all over in his face, but Hooper is not smiling. And Brody's just going around shaking everyone's hands. And as everybody's celebrating on the dock, we cut to Quint out on his boat.
Love it.
Watching the silliness, smiling at what's going on. And in that moment, Hooper has taken out a tape measure and is measuring the shark's mouth.
Yeah.
To me, this is 100% perfect storytelling that this is not the shark.
Yeah. And you've got the three regulars around this scene that are going to be our guys on the boat, right? You've got Brody, or you got Quint offshore going by on his boat with just this laugh of like, these idiots think they caught the real shark. These idiots couldn't catch a cold, you know? And then you've got Hooper measuring the shark because he wants to, and it's giving us if you're watching it for the first time, it's foreshadowing what he's going to be talking about. And then But Brody, who we just talked about him being overwhelmed, right?
Yep.
He is so happy at this because he's like, oh my God, thank God. I don't have to worry about this anymore. This crisis is over. I'm not going to be overwhelmed. Like, he wants to believe that this is the shark. So I love that all three of these guys are getting a moment amidst what we think is the fake's resolution to our movie.
And they're trying to get Hooper out of the way because they want to take the big picture so they can publicize this thing. And then someone says,
Got a deep throat crack.
Yeah, but what kind? What kind of shark?
It's a tiger shark.
A what?
A what?
How that's not a meme, I don't know. Especially nowadays when everybody makes fun of everyone else's intelligence nowadays. I feel perfect.
I think it's in the Jaws at 50. It's certainly one of the docs, but this is this guy's life. I mean, him saying a what is his 15 minutes of fame. Like, that is his whole life. People have said, oh, say a what? And he'll say, it's like Mrs. Kitner slapping people, you know? And everyone is celebrating and the mayor is happy. And finally, Hooper pulls Brody aside and says,
Martin, there are all kinds of sharks in the waters, you know? Hammerheads, white tips, blues, makos. And the chances that these bozos got the exact shark...
there's no other sharks like this in these waters.
It's 100 to 1. 100 to 1.
All of a sudden, Brody's an expert.
This is exactly what my note was. Brody knows nothing about sharks, nothing about these waters. He doesn't know what sharks are in these waters, or he has no idea.
Because he wants to believe this so much that he's going to defend it. Yeah.
Again, this is what we see all the time in the world. People making these statements based on how they think the world works, who knows nothing about anything because of what you just said, because they want to believe that that's true.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that this is not the shark. It probably is, Martin. It probably is. It's a man-eater. It's extremely rare for these waters. But the fact is that the bite radius on this animal is different than the wounds on the victim.
It's got some science coming.
I agree, yeah.
And I think Hooper makes a very strong case here, with one exception.
I want to be sure. You want to be sure. We all want to be sure, okay? And what I want to do is very simple. The digestive system of this animal is very, very slow. Let's cut it open. Whatever it's eaten in the last 24 hours is bound to still be in there, and then we'll be sure.
And the mayor comes up. Again, Maury Hamilton is always so great.
This is the rare moment when the mayor is right.
This is not the time or the place to perform some kind of a half-assed autopsy on a fish. And I am not going to stand here and see that thing cut open and see that little Kitner boy spill out all over the dock.
He's totally right.
100%.
Except that what he should say is, let's take the shark down. After we get our pictures, we'll take the shark down, we'll bring it somewhere else, and then we'll open it up.
That's what you think he should say, right?
Yes, that is what I think he should say.
Right, but he's shown no inclination to be the correct person as a mayor.
Of course.
So he won't do that, right? Exactly. And you're 100% right. That's what he should do if
That's
he
what
was
you
a
should
better
do.
mayor. But like, I love this scene because I love the way Murray, it's so great you point out Murray Hamilton as an actor in this moment, Steve, because these are the little moments when you're watching as an actor that you just marvel at these little physical things that actors do that add authenticity to the scene. And not everyone's going to catch it, but actors catch it. And when they're having the back and forth, when he steps, first of all, the way they frame this, that he steps in between them, I think is great. Mm-hmm. And then when he does the waving of the hand, when he says some half-ass autopsy of a fish, it adds more of the kind of like, are you too fucking crazy? And he's absolutely right. But this also gives a little bit of character work to Hooper, because Hooper, like Quint in a way, also feels like he is a cut above. Like he's a little condescending, even though he's that guy that's confusing because he wants to be liked by society, but he doesn't want to take part in society, right? He's not going to have a lot of friends, Hooper, because he really thinks he's the smartest person in the room, no matter what room he's in. He's just one of those characters. And so him not thinking about how terrible it would be to cut open a shark here in front of everybody and watch the body parts come out. He literally says the digestion system is slow on the shark. So he knows that body parts will be coming out of this shark if they look in there. Shows that the level of like, he's not thinking about other people's comfortability because he's only focused on finding out the truth. And there's a certain level of that. With Brody, he's entertaining this notion because he's so desperate to have this problem solved that he's looked past the fact that it might make people uncomfortable. And of all people, for the mayor to come in and be the logical one, I think is so perfect, you know?
I think you make great points. And I think, it's like Hooper's interested in the shark.
Yes,
like that's the thing he's most interested in. He's not thinking about the humans.
Right.
It's not that Hooper doesn't want to stop the shark to save lives. He does.
Right.
but he loves sharks. That's why he's here, you know?
And I do think the mayor has a little bit of truth to the fact that, because Hooper wants to use this situation. I don't mean use in a terrible way, but use in a way that like helps him in his status to achieve a higher level of respect amongst his peers. And so there is an ulterior motive here as well.
And I also think, and I'm glad you mentioned it, is that it's important to point out, while Brody was 100% relieved to be done when he thought he was done.
Yeah.
The moment that doubt comes in, Brody goes, no, we do have to check, you know, because Brody is not like the mayor. He's not trying to be in denial. He's actually really trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. And I also think this moment is important for the mayor. So the mayor doesn't become a mustache twirling Billy Zane from Titanic. Like having him be right here gives a little more humanity. And later when he's like talking about his kids being on the beach and signing, I think it's really important to have these moments. So he's more three-dimensional, you know?
And then, and this is how good screenwriting works, you don't have to get to the end of the scene.
Yeah.
We had everything that was important, and now we're going to interrupt that because here comes Mrs. Kitner.
Oh, so great.
In black with the veil, being led up by, I'm assuming it's her father, you know, who's on her arm, walks up to Chief Brody, says,
Chief Brody?
Yes?
And man, there's some stage slaps in movies, and there's some non-stage slaps in movies. This is not, she hits him, you know.
This is what Jim Carrey refers to in Liar Liar, you know, when he's talking about Tina Turner and Ike Turner. He says, Ike hit me again and put some stank on it. She put some stank on that. You know what I'm saying? She put some stank on that.
I was trying to figure out, where are you going with this?
She puts stank, because she doesn't slap the front of his cheek.
No.
She slaps the back of his cheek and side of his face with the lower part of her hand and the rest of her hand. So it is a brutal smack. You know, and it's fantastic for its effect.
And for a local actor who I know ran the local theater, and obviously her performance on this is stellar.
Very moving.
I just found out that a girl got killed here last week. And you knew it. You knew there was a shark out there. You knew it was dangerous. But you let people go swimming anyway. You knew all those things. But still, my boy is dead now. And there's nothing you can do about it. My boy is dead. I wanted you to know that.
You know, there are good people in the world, and we sometimes forget that because of the madness that goes on. And this scene is such a window into this woman, and this is her last scene in the film. But what she says to him comes from a place of respect for his authority, but also a dressing down of the mistakes he made, right? And she lays it out very strongly. And then she says, my boy is dead. My boy, I wanted you to know that. When she says, I almost get emotional when I talk about it, because she wants him to remember this. She knows that he probably is a good man, but he made a massive mistake here that cost the life of her child. And she could get lost in the grief and sue and angry and hate him forever. But she wants him to stop this shark because she doesn't want other people to suffer what she suffered through as the loss of a family member because of this eating machine. The way it's conveyed in the movie, obviously, Steve. I don't mean sharks in general.
Yeah.
And so when she says to him, I wanted you to know that, it's not to make him feel guilty. It's to make him remember, if he doubts doing what needs to be done, if he doubts doing the right thing, that he has to do it because people's lives are dependent on him doing this. And he has to remember her son so that he can keep going when he's doubting himself. And so I think it's a beautiful scene that says so much more than just a mother's grief, you know?
I want to say two things about it. The first is the writing, which is that all it is a statement of facts.
Yes.
There's no, I'm going to miss him so much. What am I going to do with my life? He wanted to be a doctor. There's nothing, it's not about sad. It's not about, I saw the blood. It's just step by step. Here's all the truth.
Yep.
That are just facts. And her performance is the same.
Yeah.
It is completely self-contained. It is perfectly honest. And it is the facts like floating on a sea of pain, and that you can feel essentially the rest of her life in mourning in this moment. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
I will be dressed in black and wearing this veil emotionally for the rest of my life.
She's not having another child.
No.
If she's a single mom, she's not getting remarried. This is now going to be her life, right?
Well,
and yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, think about her casting. She's not, Alex is 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah.
So she could theoretically be late 20s, early 30s, but I think she's more 40s.
I think she's 40. So I bet this was an anomaly, maybe a one-off with someone that she met, maybe even someone not in the town, like an outsider is coming through. They had an affair. She got pregnant and she was very happy to have the child, and it brought so much joy to her life. And now it's gone. But, she's still a good woman. She's not just going to slap him and beat him and rage. She's saying to him, in essence, the undercurrent is you've got a job to do and you better do it. And I think that's really powerful. And you talk about the writing. You're absolutely right about the writing and the performance and all of that. But I wonder, Steve, let me ask you a question. Do you think, because they got there pretty fucking fast, do you think she was sitting out there in the car with her dad in the black in case they caught the shark so that she could walk up and see the shark and have the back and forth with Brody? Because she got there pretty fast after they caught the shark.
Well, we don't exactly know how much time, like from when they caught it, but I agree. Yeah. I actually think they were literally at Alex's funeral, and that's why they're all in black.
That's great.
And they got in their car to leave the funeral when the news report came over the radio to say they had caught the shark.
Right, because the PR guy, the Gottlieb guy, was there saying, "Let's get Polly, get these people on the phone." Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, yeah, great point, man. Okay, I buy that 100%. The funeral. Yep.
And then and fucking Roy Scheider, man, he just takes it, and there's so much on his face, and there's so much, and he is respectful enough to not say anything. He doesn't defend himself. He doesn't argue. He just stands there and takes it.
I'm sorry, Martin. She's wrong.
No, she's not.
This is the end of Brody being a step behind the mayor. Yep. This is it. He had to be kind of slapped into sense that his voice is important here as well. And I think it does make him ashamed, which is why we're going to get the scene we get next, because he was just celebrating the catching of the shark as if this was something like joyful to celebrate rather than something mournful that this thing was out there and had killed already 2 people. And so he was more focused on his own feelings about it than he was about the feelings of the people who'd lost loved ones. And so she kind of slaps him back into reality. And I love that he walks away from the mayor when he's trying to console him. It's perfect.
So here's what I wrote down here. I wrote it down in all caps. I wrote, this to me is the definition of a moral person.
Yeah, 100%.
Is that Brody cares about what's right.
Yep.
It's not that he's indifferent to people not liking him or not respecting him or hating him or anything like that. But in a choice between being disrespected and doing what's right, he's going to do what's right. And in a choice between admitting that he's wrong or letting people know that he's wrong, he's going to do that in order to do what's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. And that's not true of the mayor. And it's not true of a lot of other people.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's true of Quint or Hooper.
Right.
Quint's not going to admit that he's wrong. Hooper's insecure about all sorts of stuff. Brody is.
Right. And also Brody's a dad. And I think there's an element of that as well, where he understands if it was my child, I understand her pain. And if someone else had made the mistake, I too would feel this way. And so there's an element of that here too as well.
So Brody walks away, and this is one of the rare sort of music cue, like traditional film music cues. It's not about the shark, it's not about the ocean. It's really about the emotional moment.
All right, fellas, let's cut this ugly son of a bitch down before it stinks up the whole island.
And then, and I think this is a critical cut, as Brody is walking away, Hooper is watching him go.
Yeah.
Having witnessed the slap, being aware and really feeling like in the way the shots are constructed, that he understands the pain that Brody is experiencing in this moment.
I think Hooper came to the island with a belief that these are a bunch of yokels. He's smarter than all of them. But this moment, there is a sense of respect for Brody because he sees how he reacted to it, as you just mentioned, Steve. And this changes his approach to Brody. And as we're about to see. And if I could do some headcanon, I don't think Hooper's father was ever like this. And so there is even more of a respect for that.
You mean that his father was not a good man in the sense that Brody is?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I agree.
He knows his father got his wealth by some nefarious means. And when he experiences someone who isn't bought and paid for, like his father has probably bought and paid a lot of people, he has a very deep respect for that person. You can see that in the lingering shots you mentioned of Hooper as he's watching Brody walk away.
Well, even if, of course, I have no idea, but even if his father was on the up and up,
yes,
but like wasn't nefarious, but still valued money and wealth and privilege and all those things. I mean, obviously, of course, there was a schism with his son who you want to go chase sharks around on the boat.
Right.
What the
Why don't
hell?
you take over the family business.
Take over the family business.
Right.
And I definitely think where I 100% agree is like Hooper's father, Mr. Hooper Sr., never admitted that he was wrong.
Oh, yeah, probably 1,000% true. And of course, people might get upset listening to us. It's just headcanon. We're not saying it's the truth.
We don't know this. This is just what kind of makes sense to us. And I want to compare this. So Matt Hooper in the book, I mean, all three of these main characters are very, very different in the book.
Yeah.
Matt Hooper in the book is a young, arrogant prick. He's just a jerk.
So rich,
And Brody, who has a bit of a potbelly in the book and is very much he's a local, he's not from New York, not that sophisticated, takes an instant dislike to Hooper. They don't get along at all. And in this moment where Hooper is watching Brody go, there's a bond that's created. This is the exact opposite of what's being set up in the book.
Yep.
So we're back at Brody's home and Ellen walks in looking very concerned and the camera pulls back to reveal Brody sitting at the dinner table, Sean, the super cute little kid, looking at him, and Brody is at the first he's just lost in his own world.
Yeah,
you could feel the sadness, and what we notice, I think, before Brody notices, is that Sean is mirroring his movements.
Yeah.
So when Brody interlaces his fingers, Sean interlaces his fingers, and then Brody notices Sean.
Yeah,
and then he does what you do with a little kid, which is he moves his fingers, Sean moves his fingers. He opens his hand, Sean opens his hand. They smile at each other, and then the sneer, and Sean makes this little monster face, and it's super cute. And you can see as Ellen watching it, because I think it's key that Ellen is watching this, that you can feel the weight on her for Brody's sadness, and it lighten up in this moment of love. And it's so beautiful, man. And this one does get me as a dad, because he says,
"Give us a kiss."
Why?
Because I need it.
It's an incredible scene. And the way it happened was they're off camera between takes and Roy Scheider is hanging out with that little kid who plays Sean. And they had just started doing this.
Yeah.
And Roy gets up and goes over to Spielberg and says, "Hey, come over here. I want you to watch this." And Spielberg comes over and watch them just kind of mirror each other. And that's how this ends up in the movie.
Yeah, and this is his only movie, Jay Mello, who plays the kid of Sean, a character of Sean. He was also a local, Steve, from Massachusetts there. And he said when he first saw the shark as a kid, the prop shark, even though it didn't work, he was 6 years old. He said, "I do remember the first time I saw it, it was just the head part of the shark. I kind of questioned Sherry Rhodes, who was the casting director. I said, 'Where's the rest of the shark?' I didn't go back in the water for like 2 years after the movie was made." So even the actors on the set, were affected by all of this stuff as well. But so it's interesting. But I like this. I don't have kids, but certainly I had these moments with my dad when I was younger and when I was a child. And so it's a great way to humanize Brody as well, his interactions with Sean here in this moment. And you sense his like the weight of the world on Brody because he has a sweet asking of his son to give him a kiss because he does need one.
The difference between a good film and a great film is that in a good film, you can point to great moments and you go, "Oh, I love this scene. I love this action sequence. I love that line. I love this joke. I love this song," whatever it is. In a great film, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of moments like that.
Yeah, no, you're
This scene is entirely unnecessary to the plot of the film.
Right.
It doesn't advance any story. There's nothing that if I cut this scene out of the movie and you had not seen it, you would not miss it.
Yeah.
But if I cut this scene out of the movie and you had seen it, you would miss it.
You're right.
Spielberg said, if you don't care about the people, you won't give a hang about the shark.
Yeah, that's very, very true.
And
because
this is
their lives are threatened by that shark. So you have to care that their lives could be in danger. Yeah.
Well, it's not just, it's more than their lives are in danger. You have to care about them. You have to know them and
that's what I mean.
Feel their feelings. What?
You don't want them to die. And so by caring for them, it ups the fear that they could become in danger from the shark when those moments happen.
I don't know. I of course I agree, with what you're saying, but I feel like there's something bigger here.
Okay.
Because, like, you know, in all sorts of movies where there's a killer, you don't want the people to die because that's what the movie's about. I think I care about, it's not that it's, I'm not thinking in this scene that I'm afraid Brody's going to die. Brody's not under any
of
threat.
course not.
But I care about the relationships and his guilt and the internal struggle and his relationship with his family. I mean, it's like deep caring the way you care about a friend. It's not just about them dying. It's caring because I care.
Well, I think we're maybe going from two different directions, but landing in the same spot. I agree with you that establishing these characters and their relationships are important. But I think the reason it's important is that when you threaten them with the shark, you're more invested in hoping that they
100%.
survive.
Yeah, no, I
And that's
totally
what
agree with that. Yeah. But but I also go like, this is what, I'm going to hit it again just because I think it's important, particularly in terms of where movies are now and like Marvel movies and all these things that we're talking about all the time, is that it isn't caring about Lex Luthor. It isn't caring about Galactus. It isn't caring. It's that if we like those characters and want to be in their lives, that's what's making those movies work.
Of course.
Not that other stuff,
100%.
you know? And now there are several weird things that Matt Hooper does in the next part of the scene. The first of which happens right now, which is he knocks on the door of a stranger's house and then just walks in.
Yeah.
The door was open. Mind if I come in?
That's weird.
Yeah.
Your husband's home.
Yes.
I'd really like to talk to him.
Yes, so would I.
I think he's been silent since he came home.
Oh, yeah. And I think this is what he does when he is, and she knows this, when he is mulling something over or feels guilty about something or feels like he could have done more. He's not a guy who openly beats himself up. He's a guy who retreats within himself until he processes it and then comes back out again. And there are people like that. And so I think that's another part of their marriage or their relationship, which is, you say, if he hasn't spoken since he got home, I think she knows, she accepts that about him and she gives him his space when he's like that.
Hooper comes in and she's like offering him coffee and whatnot. And we see that he has 2 bottles of wine and he comes in and sits down, stares at Brody for a moment, who looks back in silence. And then Hooper says with a smile,
"How was your day?"
he breaks the tension. Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. I've known you for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
If you had a really shitty day, I would feel comfortable coming up to you and saying, "How was your day?"
Yeah. A joke. Yeah. To break the tension.
But if I had just met you today,
right,
that is a huge step.
Yeah.
And I think what it does is it shows this is an instant friendship. It's an instant bond.
Especially because Brody has no friends on the island.
Yeah.
Right. So there's someone who speaks his language, maybe, a little bit of the East Coast ball busting, as I like to say. And so him coming in with this little icebreaker, which I don't think Ellen can do because it's a different relationship. But this guy coming in, he's a man, he's got so he gives him a little bit of shit. And it's a way of understanding because he was there, he witnessed it. So yeah, that all helps Brody to kind of laugh about it, which is great.
And Brody goes, "Swell." And I love that Hooper goes, "Yeah, I got a red and white. I didn't know what you'd be serving."
Sir,
that's a class structure thing right there. That only
yes, 100%.
And my guess is these are the 2 best bottles of red and white wine on Amity Island. Like this is he went and got good wine.
Yeah,
because what's so funny is he's totally scruffy's 70s, person. But he was raised with black ties and cotillions and debutante balls and all that shit, Now, this is the next weird moment of Hooper. He looks at the plate in front of Brody that's untouched and says,
"Is anyone eating this?"
And takes Brody's dinner.
And Ellen says no. She surrenders the dinner to him.
Yeah.
My husband tells me you're in Sharks.
And he laughs and goes,
"When I was 12 years old, my father got me this boat and I went fishing off of Cape Cod. And I hooked a scup, and as I was reeling it in, I hooked a 4.5-foot baby thresher shark who proceeded to eat my boat. He ate my oar hooks and my seat cushions. He turned an inboard into an outboard, scared me to death, and I swam back to shore. And ever since then, I have been studying sharks, and that's why I know that I'm going to go to the Institute tomorrow and tell them that you still have a shark problem here."
In the book, as you mentioned in the first part, Hooper and Ellen have an affair because she's unhappy in the relationship and the marriage. And as you said, Brody is an islander. He's put on weight, but it's not a good relationship. They're not happy. So Hooper can slide in and do what he does. And it's because she dated his older brother. She was like a girlfriend of his older brother or something like that, if I remember correctly. So, but I do think an element of flirting is here. So this may be a bit of a wink and a nod to the people who'd read the book, because Ellen is very open to Hooper and she surrenders Brody's plate of food. And when he's telling his story about what happened to his boat, she's like laughing and being, like she's really into it, you know? So there might be, Hooper has a smile. And look, she's probably dealt with morose Brody a lot of her life. And so having someone come in who's a little more lighthearted, a little more like there's an element of like, oh, this is something else that I could have in my life. So I kind of think that there's a little bit of just a hint of flirting between the two of them that's happening and it's happening right in front of Brody. So I feel like this is a way of referencing the thing in the book without actually stating anything or pursuing that storyline, but it's maybe a wink and a nod. Because Brody may have smiled at the joke and said swell. He immediately goes back into his darkness. And even the way he shot slightly darker than Ellen and Hooper are, who are a little bit more light in the lighting of the scene. You know, and he immediately goes to the wine and starts pouring.
I think what you're describing is 100. I wouldn't frame it exactly the way that you do, but I definitely think it's there. And the way I see it is a slightly different, which is just that. Well, I mean, you just moved to San Diego with the Lady Outlaw.
Yeah.
When a couple moves to a strange city, they're alone in a very specific kind of way. You know, they don't have peers. And you were just saying that Brody is very much alone in the island.
Yes.
And Hooper showed up. I think, you know, and we're going to see from this next line, Brody didn't tell her that this might not be the shark. He's just been sitting silently this whole time.
That's true. Yes, 100%.
And so
she's shocked when Hooper says what he says. Yeah.
So when she doesn't have someone she can call. She doesn't have a friend that she can go to.
Oh, I think she does. What do you mean?
Well, I mean,
the woman on the beach she's like, can I be an islander? And she's like, you can't be an islander.
You can't be an islander.
She has friends. They're just
I agree with the point, but I'd still say that she's an outsider, and in dealing with this moment with her husband who's upset and not talking to her, she's alone.
Yes.
And so what the feeling that I have is more, it's not as so much flirty. It's like, oh, here's an ally. Here's a person that obviously can reach my husband, and there's someone else I can talk to, you know, who's also not an islander.
It's a great point, Steve. You could argue that she's overly smiley and overly happy because someone has come in to shake Martin out of this, and she's not alone in this battle. That's a very good point. Yeah, I can see that.
I like that Brody says, I know I said that he's an honorable person. I'm standing by that, but I like that when Hooper says he's going to have to tell the Institute they have a shark problem, he says,
why do you have to tell him that? Sorry.
You told me the shark was caught. And I heard it on the news. I heard it on the Cave Station.
They caught a shark, not the shark. Not the shark that killed Chrissy Watkins. And probably not the shark that killed the little boy.
And as he's talking, Brody is pouring himself a glass of wine. It's the perfect pace he pours at.
Yeah.
Because he pours slow enough that it takes a long time to fill the entire water glass with wine. And again, another sign of Hooper's education in class is...
You know, you want to let that breathe for nothing.
Yeah.
It's great.
You know, you're going to be the only rational man left on this island after I leave tomorrow.
Where are you going?
And then we hear that Hooper's going to go off on some, you know, shark research boat that's very exciting.
Martin hates boats. Martin hates water. Martin sits in his car when we go on the ferry to the mainland. I guess it's a childhood thing. There's a clinical name for it, isn't there?
Drowning.
It might be my favorite joke in the whole. It's hard. It's a hard call, but that one always cracks me up.
But see, even this moment, she is surrendering his vulnerabilities to a stranger, and that I would be upset about that. If my wife was telling a stranger about my flaws, I think I'd be a little bit upset. So I think it's a really well written scene that has the undercurrent of conveying the status of the relationships, and the relationship between Brody and Hooper is building, and the relationship between Brody and his wife, clearly there are issues there. And so for her to surrender that stuff to him, she's almost asking him to Hooper to take part in helping to ease Brody's mind. But, you know, it is also a little bit of surrendering that stuff to maybe shake Brody out of it, make him look at this thing because it's such an issue. You know?
I think it's a great point. And right after that drowning moment, he just turns on a dime to ask the next question because he's been researching sharks.
Is it true that most people get attacked by sharks in 3 feet of water, about 10 feet from the beach?
Yeah.
And that before people started to swim for recreation, I mean, before sharks knew what they were missing, that a lot of these attacks weren't reported.
The framing here is sharks made the discovery. Humans started to swim for recreation.
Right.
Sharks discovered that they're delicious. And therefore, that's when they started attacking humans in shallow water. I mean, that's kind of the implication.
That's what I thought.
So let me ask you, what do you think of this fact that we get that most shark attacks happen in 3 feet of water, about 10 feet from shore?
I believed it. 4 feet of water, right? Or 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or 4, whatever it said.
Yeah. I believed it and still believe it to this day.
And you were right to believe it. This is a totally accurate statistic. Yeah. But again, I think it's an accurate statistic that actually is teaching us the wrong lesson, which I want to drill down on it a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm going to make up a statistic. This is bullshit. This is not true. I'm just making this up as an example. But let's say that I said that 98% of cases of tuberculosis among koala bears, again, I just made this up, occur in Australia.
Okay.
Your reaction might be, or one's reaction might be, oh shit, there's an epidemic of tuberculosis among koala bears in Australia. So first of all, I didn't say how many koalas actually had tuberculosis. That's a key problem with the statistic I just gave. It could be 1 million koala bears. It could be 3 koala bears. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, and this is more important, 99.999% of all koalas living on the planet are in Australia. So it isn't surprising that 98% of the tuberculosis in the statistic I made up would be there. In fact, based on those statistics, there are actually fewer tubercular koala bears in Australia than there are in the rest of the world. So the statistic is accurate but misleading.
Yes.
This statistic is accurate. Most incidents with shark happen in fairly shallow water, fairly close to shore. Any guesses on why that is?
No, actually, I don't know what that reason would be.
It's just like my koala examples, because that's where the humans are. Humans don't swim in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
Sharks are hunting all the time, all over the oceans.
Right.
But humans, when they go in the water, 90% of them are within 4 feet of water.
Right.
That's where the population is.
Right.
So it isn't that sharks are targeting them. And remember, combine this with the idea that sharks are 5 times faster than humans.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something else. Sharks are always in the water, relatively near humans. There was a study that was done off the coast of Long Beach, Southern California, looking at beaches. And basically, every single day, they are looking to see if there are sharks in the water where people are swimming.
Yeah.
Would you like to know what percentage out of 100 days they found sharks within 50 feet of people who are swimming on the beaches?
Go ahead.
97%.
Wow.
There are always sharks in the water, and there are almost never incidents. And those sharks are way faster than humans and perfectly capable of biting them.
Right.
And so even though the statistics is totally true, people are much more likely to get hit by a shark close to shore because that's where people are.
Right.
But the narrative that's created by that story, sharks got a taste of human flesh, they can't get enough, and now they're hunting in shallow water, is complete bullshit. Because they're not.
Right.
They're in shallow water and choosing not to bite humans. That's actually the reality of the situation. But Hooper confirms all this.
That's right. Now, this shark that swims alone, what's it called? Rogue.
I love what Roy Scheider's doing here in his performance. It's just, he's you could tell he's been processing through this for a long time, thinking it all. Now he's testing it.
Now, this guy, he keeps swimming around in a place where the feeding is good until the food supply is gone, right?
It's called territoriality. It's just theory that I happen to agree with.
This wasn't even good shark science in the 70s. This is bullshit. This one's complete bullshit. It's not that there might not be a quote-unquote rogue shark who might behave differently from the rest of the population. But the idea of territoriality is not true. Sharks are migratory feeders. They're just like migratory birds, like migratory fish. So, for instance, on the West Coast, they'll be in Hawaii, and they're in Hawaii in the summer because that's when the tuna and the wahoo are in Hawaii. So that's that food supply. Right. And then they'll go to the Great White Cafe, which is this place in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that we don't understand, where sharks come from all over the ocean and they hang out for a while together. And then they'll go to the rookeries off the coast of Mexico and California, like Guadalupe Island and the Farallones, because that's where the elephant seals and seals are breeding.
Yeah.
And so they're there for that season. And then when the breeding season stops, then they go back to the Great White Cafe and they go back to Hawaii. And sharks in South Africa have a different migratory pattern. They're following their food supplies. They're not like find a spot and go, ooh, the food's good here. I'm going to hang out here until there's no food. That's not what sharks do at all.
Okay. I didn't know that. All right.
Then why don't we have one more drink and go down and cut that shark open?
Can you do that?
I can do anything. I'm the chief of police.
I love it. I think the reason he was silent is because he can't talk to Ellen about this stuff.
Yeah.
Because she's not knowledgeable about this. But when Hooper shows up, this is the person I can talk to about this stuff. You know? And I think he probably was going to reach out to Hooper the next day anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think he doesn't want to scare Ellen.
No, of course,
You know?
that too as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you said in the book, Ellen had dated Hooper's older brother. And in the book, she is immediately very, very visually flirting with him and immediately pissing Brody off, who is immediately jealous and immediately hates Matt Hooper.
Right.
Totally different situation.
Yeah, there's elements of that in this scene, but it's played for much softer landing than what you see in the book.
We cut to Hooper with a flashlight and a knife cutting into the shark. Brody kneeling a few feet back. Obviously, this stinks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hooper's really struggling. When the white liquid comes out, when they open up the digestive tract. Ugh.
All I think of is the fly, that goop that comes out of his mouth. Yeah. Now when I see it, of course, because I had seen this before the fly, but now when I see it, I think
it's very clear that he throws that fish head towards Brody.
Yeah.
Right. Who backs up.
Just like I thought. What? I came up with the Gulf Stream from southern waters.
And tosses out a Louisiana license plate. And then that's it. They don't find any human remains, nothing in it. This is not the shark.
Gotta close the beach, call the mayor.
Got a bigger problem than that, Martin. You still got a hell of a fish out there. With a mouth about this big.
How do we confirm that by morning?
If he is a rogue, and there's any truth to territoriality at all, we've got a good chance of spotting him between Cape Scott and South Beach.
So Hooper, who likes the water, it's perfectly reasonable to go out on a boat in the middle of the night in shark-infested waters.
Yeah.
Not so much Brody.
But this is an interesting thing too, Steve, to think about. Well, you just said earlier, right, about like, well, people trade in fear and listen to things that just reaffirm their fear. Well, everything Brody is doing is because Hooper is suggesting it, right? From the cutting open of the shark to now he's like, get on the boat. And Hooper has validated the stuff that Brody has read.
Yeah.
And validating his fears. But Brody does not have to go out into the water at night. You say he's a night feeder, yet he's killed a kid in the middle of the day and killed one woman at night.
Well, at dawn. I mean, it was the sun was coming up.
Oh, right.
So
Well, right, at dawn. So, yeah. So even more so day rather than night. But here is Hooper saying he's a night feeder. And they go, now Hooper may be saying, now I don't know, of course the script may have changed and whatever, but like there's no evidence that he's a night feeder. It's just what Hooper is saying. And so he's eaten in the day and the night, or arguably, dawn, as you said, Steve. So Brody is going along with this because he trusts Hooper's approach to this. But Hooper is a flawed narrator in all this because Hooper's not as experienced as someone else who is much more established at the Oceanography Institute. So I think it's the fact that Brody has less knowledge about this, that he trusts Hooper's knowledge about this, but Hooper might be leading them into a bad situation, and so it's fascinating to watch that happen. And it's all driven by the fear and Hooper's desire to catch this shark, or to document the shark.
This is why this is fun doing the show with you all these years, because you just brought up something that I hadn't really thought about. And the more I'm thinking about it, I actually think there's really something there, because here's the thing about guys like Matt Hooper.
Yeah.
They want to see the fucking shark. That's what he wants.
That's the focus. Yes.
And so, and the guys who want to see the fucking shark are not scared of sharks the way normal people are.
Right.
And so they will naturally pressure because he needs permission essentially from Brody. Brody had to go out and look for this shark.
Yeah.
And so he's got to convince Brody to think like him. And again, this is the other thing is, and I'm sure you've experienced this in all sorts of realms. When somebody really, really loves a very specific thing, they don't understand other people who don't love the thing.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like, why? How can you not be a football fan? How can you not love live music? How can you not? And they're so excited to go do that, and they're trying to get you to come along, you know?
Yeah. It's always an anomaly when I run into men who don't watch sports. It's a very weird. This is one of the things I had to get used to here in California. Because on the East Coast, man, it is all over the East Coast. I'm not saying there aren't dudes who don't watch sports on the East Coast, but it is not a prevalent thing. Here on the West Coast, it's kind of prevalent in certain sections of people that I've hung out with. So it is an odd thing for me. And so you're up 100% right. That being said, though, I think it's important to note that like Hooper isn't calling the Oceanography Institute or his professors or his peers or his superiors there. Point. Yeah, and when he says constantly to Martin, you got to call the Coast Guard. You didn't control the waters, you got a Coast Guard. They're not calling the Coast Guard after this. He wants to go out himself with Brody because he wants the credit. He wants a little bit of. So I know the scene later with the mayor he laughs at him and whatever, and it is a little bit comical, but the mayor's not 100% wrong. And so there is an element of his ego involved here with Hooper wanting to go out, essentially rogue himself to catch this rogue shark, you know?
It's a really good point. And I think, again, this is one of these areas we make is like there's that is a flaw in Hooper that there is some ego there and some insecurity and that's true. But the mayor, we'll get to when we get there, is going to use that to say all the other things he's saying isn't true.
Right.
Yeah. And I love the moment he says,
on the water? Well, if we're looking for a shark, we're not going to find him on the land.
Yeah, but I'm not drunk enough to go out in a boat.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
I can't do that.
Yes, you can.
By the way, I love that the previous scene ended with, I'm the chief of police. I could do anything I want. And on this one, it's ending with, I can't do that.
Yeah. And then he does it anyway.
Yeah. Cut to the boat, very foggy night. The boat is very high tech. It's obvious they've been drinking all the whole way to get out here.
Yes.
Martin is drunk, wearing a life preserver. And that's when he notices all these gadgets.
Who pays for all this stuff? Government? The Institute? This stuff costs a lot of money.
Well, I pay for this mostly myself, actually.
You're kidding.
No.
You rich?
Yeah.
Now, to be clear, there are levels of rich. This boat is a high level of rich.
Yes, it is. The equipment is a high level of rich.
I mean, because it's a nice boat. So, I mean, I think today this is like, I don't know, several $100,000 boat. I don't know. This is expensive. I love the way Dreyfuss plays all this.
Well, personally or the whole family?
And then again, one of my favorite lines coming up.
Doesn't make any sense. I mean, they pay a guy like you to watch sharks?
Well, doesn't make much sense for a guy who hates the water to live on an island either.
It's only an island if you look at it from the water.
It's only an island if you look at it from the water.
Fucking love that line. Dude, as I said earlier, I was rewatching about an hour of it. I stopped it after that line and just giggled my ass off for 10 minutes, man, because that is such a great line. And then Dreyfuss without missing a beat.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and again, this is ball busting between guys. Like this thing, because he's like, well, it's only an island if you see it from the water. He's like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense, you fucking dope. It's so great. It's so great.
I mean, we've built a podcast on us having things to say about why a line is good or why a moment. I don't have anything to say. I love that line. It literally makes me laugh. It's making me laugh just thinking about that line. It's great.
You know what's occurred to me as we were talking about this scene? It's very similar to the scene with the two dopes in the roast.
Sure.
Because I think Brody is, can we go home now? He's that guy.
Yeah.
And Hooper is the guy who wants to jump in the water. Essentially, his body is the roast to try to get to the shark. And it's foolish. And as you said, they've been drinking. And I'm sure Hooper was all for it. But you're always all for something until you actually start doing something.
Yeah.
And I bet him getting in the boat, them getting closer, he started drinking more to be able to build up his courage to do this thing. Yeah.
Wait, build up his courage to do what thing?
Jump in the water.
But he didn't know he was going to jump in the water until he saw the boat.
I think you suspect you might. Oh, no, I see what you're saying. He didn't know he was going to jump in the well, confronting the shark. We don't know what's going to happen. So
hey, look, I liquid courage is a real thing.
It is a real thing, yes.
And then these devices that Hooper has just starts to beep. And at first we go like, oh, maybe it's a school of mackerel or something. And as soon as it's beeping, Brody is nervous.
Sure.
And they sail a little further, and then there's more beeping.
There's something else out there. About 100 yards south-southwest.
And now, hey, guess what? There's the music.
Yep.
The music tells us something real's going on. They have ridiculously powerful flashlights.
Yeah, it's crazy to see that. Like how much they can see on the water from the flashlights they have. And again, this is a rich boat, as you said.
Well, and it's probably, they have a lighting crew from the movie who hooked them up with some really powerful flashlights here.
Point too, yes.
And they come up on the wreck boat, and we hear
Ben Gardner's boat. That's Ben Gardner's boat.
Know him?
It's all banged up. Sure, I know him. He's a fisherman.
And it's funny, too, because I didn't for years, because they never call that guy Ben Gardner. So for years, I didn't know that was the guy who just died.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. They always saw who was being a bit of a dope earlier. Yeah.
And beautiful shot of these lights in the boat, in the fog, and the underwater lights. And I don't think when he said, I got to check something out, I don't think Brody quite processed that he was going to actually get in the water.
Yeah.
Until he comes out in the wetsuit and heads to the ladder.
Let's tow it in.
Don't worry, Martin. Nothing's gonna happen.
Well, what am I supposed to do while you're gone?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Don't touch any of the equipment.
Don't mess with my toys, man. Don't mess with my toys.
My guess is Hooper has been in the water lots and lots. He knows the shark statistics. I don't think he's, at this moment, he might be amped a little bit, but I don't think he's really scared at this moment.
But I do think, again, he's ignoring what he should be doing. Martin again says we should tow the boat in. He says it twice. We should tow the boat in. But again, Hooper wants to see for himself. He wants to do what he wants to do. Brody is right, but he doesn't want to do that.
So Hooper gets in the water, and I think this is one of the key. I asked the question earlier of if sharks aren't a threat to us, which they really aren't.
Yeah.
Why are they so scary? This is one of the key reasons.
Yeah.
The ocean is not our world.
Oh, yeah.
If you're walking through the forest, like the jungle, and there might be a lion.
Yeah.
Lions are way more dangerous. They kill between 22 and 100 people a year. Yep. And lions are way less likely to be around humans than sharks. Mm. As I said, sharks are always around humans and don't attack. Lions are rarely around humans. And if they see one, they might go after him. Yep. But we're not as scared as lions. And that is because it's not our world. It's their world. We can't see well. We can't move well. We can't breathe. We can't travel in every direction that they can travel in. That's part of what makes it so much scarier.
And you have no solid ground once you get past like 6 or 7 feet of water, which makes it all the more scary.
The music is mysterious. He comes up to a hole in the boat. He sees a tooth embedded in the wood at the hole, pulls out his knife, and then we hear that French horn, which is what I call the hunting theme. It's an addition to the shark theme. And that gives you a sense like, oh my God, is the shark here? He pulls out the tooth. He's looking around. Then he goes back to look at the hole. And as he goes back to look at the hole, Ben Gardner's severed head falls down towards him. The wide eyes moment, just absolutely terrifying. He drops the tooth and heads to the surface. So at the first real public screening of this film, the biggest scream is at the first time you see the shark when it pops up right before we're going to need a bigger boat.
Yes.
Huge scream. The Ben Gardner head moment, silence. No scream. Wow. And we'll talk about it more at the end, but the screening is a huge success. People are practically tearing the seats out of the theater. There's multiple standing ovations. They go absolutely nuts. Everyone's congratulating each other. Zanuck and Brown go up to Spielberg to shake his hand like, you did it, it's great, it's great. And Spielberg is not happy. I think he's like Brody sitting brooding at the dinner table.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? He's like, there's one more scream I can get. And they're like, what are you talking about? It's the best screening we've ever had in our lives. It's perfect. Don't change anything. But Spielberg is obsessed with this. And he's like, there is a better scream here. So they decide to do a reshoot in Verna Field's backyard swimming pool at her house in the valley. They cover the pool with a tarp. They build a little corner of the ship. They get a stunt guy, it's not Richard Dreyfuss, in the water. And Spielberg shoots every variation he can think of like, he's looking at the hole and the head comes out. He looks away and the head comes out and he looks back. It's earlier, it's later, it's faster, it's slower. He shoots like 7 different versions of this. Wow. They're currently mixing the movie on the dubbing stage. And so he cuts in the 7 different versions of this scene, shows it to the people working on the stage. There is one where everyone has a huge reaction in terms of the timing. And this is what's interesting about this. So now the next public screening they have is in a theater in Long Beach.
Yeah.
And Spielberg is 100% right. The Ben Gardner head now is the huge, terrifying scream. But this is the interesting thing that he pointed out. When the shark appears for the first time before we're going to need a bigger boat, the scream was smaller.
Yep, it is. I remember that experience watching the movie. Like that Ben Gardner moment lives with me forever. Yep. And I remember being a child and seeing that, and I probably cried because I was like 9 or 10 when I saw the movie, out of just utter fear of seeing that thing pop up because the head was so weird and the shark tooth and his reaction and the musical score in that moment, that zing that they have in that moment, it adds to the fear of it all. When you see the shark in the bigger boat moment, that's more, you're afraid, but you're also in awe.
Yeah.
So it's a combo of both, whereas the Ben Gardner is a jump scare, the shark is more like, Jesus Christ, it's that kind of thing.
And here's what Spielberg says about it. And this, to me, this is the PhD level shit. What he says is that the reason the later scream is smaller is that the Ben Gardner moment put the audience on their guard.
Yep.
And so from that point forward, they are not going to be fooled as easily.
Yeah.
They're ready. You're trying to mess with me. And that reduces this. And I'm like, that's the PhD. Like that's the Jedi Master way of thinking about making movies. So at this moment that we have yet another death to put at the fins of the great white shark, I think it's a good time to end part 2 of our exploration of Jaws. As always, we'd really love to hear your thoughts. We've gotten some great comments so far, and we'd love to hear some more. You can do a search for the Cine-Files on Facebook. It's Cine_Files on Twitter, the Cine-Files podcast on Instagram. Of course, you can subscribe to the show at all the usual podcast places, and please leave your reviews. We really would love them. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and maybe you have a specific review or comment on our exploration of Jaws. That'd be fantastic. You can buy or stream Jaws along with every other film we've ever reviewed on cinephiles.net. And if you want to reach me, it's SR Morris on Twitter, SR Morris1 on Instagram. John, how would people reach you?
You guys can always find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky and Threads, and of course my YouTube channel where a lot of things are popping off now. It is now officially the John Rocha channel. So youtube.com/John Rocha Says. Please head on over there. So much great content and great stuff going on. And we recently had Steve Morris as our co-host on an episode of the Geek Buddies last week, which was a lot of fun. Got a lot of compliments in the comment section. So Steve will absolutely be back to be a part of that. And I think, Steve, you put out something on Patreon to encourage people to leave questions. Do we want to go into that at all or no?
That's absolutely right. So we've already heard some questions from patrons so far in this show. There's going to be more coming. And if you would like to contribute a question to this exploration of Jaws, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/the Cine-Files, and it's at the $10 level that allows you to ask questions. And John and I have been talking. I think we're going to do more questions from patrons in the future because it's always a lot of fun. So that's patreon.com/the Cine-Files. I think that's it for this week. We will continue our exploration of Jaws next week on the Cine-Files.